start.
It's going, I'll go check it in the other room.
Okay, so we're assuming we're going?
Yep, you should be good. I'll be back if it's not working.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, welcome everyone to the August workshop. So masks officially are not yet required until tomorrow here at MSA, but feel free to wear them or if you're not. I'm gonna say it may make sense to take your mask off if you're speaking, just for clarity. And so I will do that right now. So we have two items on our workshop agenda. Discussion on the permanent director position that Mrs. Anderson is going to help us with, and then the next one will be the open meeting law opinion that I will go through. So you guys okay with that? Hey, welcome, Corey. You guys okay with that for the agenda for the workshop? Yeah. Okay, great. Then please, Ms. Anderson.
Well, thanks so much for having me. So mostly this comes from the search committee because we have some questions about the process. Because obviously we just went through kind of an abbreviated process with hiring the interim. And some things I think went really smoothly, and there were some things that did not go as smoothly as probably they could have. And so I hope to kind of learn from this to make sure that we don't repeat some of the problems that we had before. Now, in the original board packet, it had the timeline in there, like way in the back, like page 153 or something, but it didn't have my comments. And my comments were the 4 questions that I wanted to talk about tonight. So I printed up new versions of it, and I think I put one by everybody's spot. So hopefully you have kind of course, the timeline itself is a little bit smaller because it has the comments on there. But if you didn't get one, I put a couple extra copies at the table as well, just so you can kind of see that. So do you want to start off with my questions, or do you want to ask your questions first? Because I have kind of 4 main questions from the search committee.
I would like to start off with yours, because I read through the calendar, like the timeline, so I think I'm good on that and what the intent is, but I would.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
All right. So I don't really have, the search committee didn't really have any questions on the first page, and you can see I've kind of put all of the actions, who's supposed to take those actions, what the actions are, and then if they have been completed or not yet. So you can see we've done some of them already, and then we're in progress. On the second page then at the bottom is kind of my first comment or the first main question that the search committee had. So the search committee or the hiring task force, remember now we have a couple of different committees. We have the search committee overall, that's the committee of the board. Under that, then we have 3 task forces. And those 3 task forces are the transition task force, the hiring task force, and the values clarification task force. So, you know, those 3 task forces have some different things in here. And then, of course, you will have to take some action as well. So, you know, all of the actions are kind of divided amongst all of us. So at the very bottom, the hiring task force needs to have the contract for the permanent director. And we need to know, like, how much is that salary going to be? What are the limits? Or, you know, what I assume that there would be some sort of range that you would be given. We need to know things like how many days for PTO. We need to, you know, have a rough idea of those types of things. A lot of times this summer I was asked some general questions about that, and just because of the nature of it being an interim, I was kind of able to say, well, we're kind of thinking this, but we're not quite sure yet, and because of the nature of the time, I was kind of able to, you know, not necessarily give direct, you know, really good solid answers with some of those, but I don't feel comfortable doing that with the permanent director. I feel like we need to have that information. And so I don't know if you all want to come up with that information. You're the ones who will be in charge of enforcing that information. You'll be the ones who are in charge of, you know, communicating that information. So I don't know where the search committee falls in figuring out, you know, we have to have an ad, we have to have the job description, we have to finish all of our evaluation tools. You know, we have to do all that stuff before we do the hiring. So we need to have all of that stuff from you, or you can ask us to do it. With the interim, the search committee did take the stuff from the last time around, and I sent the changes that the search committee had suggested to all of you. But I don't think that that was the contract that was actually offered to the interim. So just so you know that, you know, and that's fine, the board doesn't have to do what the search committee is recommending, but we just need to be on the same page so that there's not miscommunication. And so that's kind of my first question then. Do you want the board to do all of these things? Do you want us to do the job contract, the salary schedule, come up with recommendations for PTO, and then we would like come up with a sample, bring that to you, you could approve it, and then we would all be on that same page? Or do you want to have just, I don't know, do you want to do it a different way, I guess, is what I'm asking.
So my first question, Lisa, when you had under number 1 is that we didn't use it last for the interim, then that's what you were saying, that you had that, but it wasn't laid out. So to clarify that, that should be a little better, tighter situation. We give a range and that's the range, is that right? Okay.
And everyone on the board should know like what the minimum and the maximum range for the salary is. Everyone on the board should know what the PTO days are. There should be a rationale, you know, like the search committee, and I know this is probably uncomfortable to talk about with you, but the search committee didn't really agree on the number of PTO days for something, so we had recommended something different. But, and that's okay. I mean, it's not a big deal. You guys have the right to change it. You want to, you know, get the best candidate and all of those things. So I totally get that. But I just think we have time now. I mean, we don't have a lot of time, but we should all be on the same page is the way that I think about it.
So I am not personally well versed on getting this information. I'm just not good at that. So how would that look if we were to ask, since you guys are kind of have the pulse on like candidates and people out there, and what would that look like if you, so early October really means next month, correct?
Yeah, well, yeah, so the search committee would get together a rough draft kind of in October, and then I think on the next page it says that we would kind of bring those things to you in November, or no, in October. So it says on the next page, the board, October, it says approves ad, approves job description changes, approves contract PTO and salary.
Okay.
Right, yeah. And so it wouldn't be, you know, I wouldn't envision that there'd be huge changes to the contract. But, you know, we have to talk about, you know, philosophically, how many days should the director have off and why should they have that many days off, you know, compared to other employees. You know, and thinking about their salary, we need to look at the salary, what we can afford. We also have to look at what we paid the interim, what we're paying the assistant directors, and then, I mean, look at some salary ranges. Of course, we can look at the charter school salary ranges. I have that information, so we can kind of think about that. But we also need to think about, like, how do we decide if it's the low range or the high range? Is that based on years of experience? Is it based on education? Because also, you know, what if we have a great permanent director, but they don't have the same degrees as our assistant directors? Then they can't get paid less than our assistant directors. So those are all things that we need to somehow have a plan, some sort of idea as to what we're going to do with that. And I'm not saying I have the solution. I'm just saying someone has to come up with a plan for that. So.
I don't like the idea of duplicating work. I think everyone feels like, you know, like we did it, you did it, and then. So I like the idea of working together more closely on the next round so that we don't, because I think, at least I didn't know some of the salary details, PTO details, because we discussed those as a board. And I didn't know they were being also discussed, you know, from the committee. So then that's a fault of the way we communicated. So I think we can fix that, go on the next round. And I feel also that some of these discussions are going to take some time and some thinking. So it may make more sense to do those outside of the board. And I don't know that we would necessarily be the right forum to go through some of that. So I feel like if we could do a better job of communicating, then next round we could make it more clean, you know, going through and then coming back for approval. Because we kind of did a little bit of that with, not the PTO, I don't recall discussing that one. I think we copied the last one, but the salary we talked through, Cody, we kind of said what could we afford and how much could we wiggle here or there. And that was the discussion that we just did here, but it sounds like you guys could do a more thorough one offline.
Lisa, we can add some of this to the finance meeting in September.
Yeah.
Was that one of the things you already put on the list, or?
No, I didn't put on the list yet, but that was kind of, depending upon what you told me here, then I have some other steps I'm going to take after the results of this meeting, I guess. So, but that would be one thing, yes. And I'm going to ask you for money for other things too at the next meeting, just to let you know.
And then I just have kind of a question, and I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm just lack of knowledge in this situation. But, so if we hire a permanent director and they don't have the same degree and they don't have the same number of years of experience, I think they can make less than the assistants. It happens with teachers.
So I don't
Happens with a
know.
lot of people.
I don't know.
I mean, we're not a corporate entity. I know in the corporate world that's like definitely not done,
Mhm.
but in this case, I think we had talked about trying to go to a schedule for the admin team. So that there wasn't wiggle room, because we had differences in percentage increase last year that were not able to be explained. And I don't like that uncertainty, so I think moving more towards a schedule is a good plan. I know it might have a little bit more wiggle room in it, but I think if a director is coming in and they're an awesome candidate, and they have a great master's, but they don't have a doctorate, like that's a different degree, it's a different pay and like set of lane. I feel like that would be okay.
I guess I agree with all the stuff you said about having the schedule. We need to go to that because it's just not fair, and it's not right for us to always have to talk about it every single time and to have heartache and who knows what's happening. But I do think that the executive director should make more. So it might be like plus 5,000 for every single time, whatever. We could look at, their stand, I mean, that might not even be enough in some cases, but I think it's pretty typical that the executive director gets paid more. Or like the superintendent gets paid more than the head principal. The head principal gets paid more than the assistant principals, even if they have different forms of education, just because of supposedly, that's where the buck stops. So they have more responsibility attached to their name or their place. So, I mean, I'm not sure how it would always work, but.
So, I mean, that's a discussion we're gonna have later. So going back to the original question is, how do we start this conversation? We have the search committee started for the board, and I think, Dan, you're leaning towards, we'll kind of readjust some of the communications, but it should be the search committee that begins the research and putting it together? Is that what you're?
Yeah, but I mean, it's up to us, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. We have all the workhorse power, if you will, with those three task committees and your task forces and the committee, so.
Okay.
And did a fantastic job last time, I mean,
Oh,
we can't really knock
We
that.
have a little more time
We
too,
do.
before we compress it in all of what.
So I would just ask that we figure out a way to maybe communicate better. We always talk, how do we communicate better? And again, we can figure out how we can, because I feel bad if we misstepped or we overstepped or what have you. It was no ill intention, but we just do it because we're all trying to do the right thing. So how do we figure out, what's within the committee's ballpark and what comes back to the board?
Well, I think a lot of the things in here, today we'll kind of figure out where it starts. So I think, because, I mean, I noticed the issues that we had, so I'm trying to solve those. So hopefully we'll start with that today. But I would like to I know that you're trying very hard to streamline these meetings, but it would make me feel really a lot more assured if I could come and say, here is my document. Do you have any questions for me? Will you approve this document? Because some of the things that happened last time, they were in the board packet and nobody ever said, like, hey, I have a question about this, or we're gonna do it different, or why did you decide this way? No one ever came to me or any of the people on the committee and suggested that they didn't like the path that we were on. So I just think that just putting it in the packet isn't enough information. I mean, we know that sometimes you guys don't read the whole packet, that just happens, so I get it. But, then I'm going, okay, nobody asked me questions, so I guess everything's okay, so I'm just gonna keep moving.
How
And
about
that's
this?
not right either, so.
One suggestion that would help me, and you guys chime in, but if I got a separate email, and maybe some of those were there, but it says this is the search committee, you know what I mean? And don't wait for the board packet, and then we just include it in the board packet for the notes out to the masses. Because then, I agree with you, if we get 200 pages on a Friday, sometimes you end up skimming, because it depends on what your weekend looks like,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
For a Monday meeting.
Yeah. Or can I just email you?
Yes.
And just say, this is what we need to talk about, please look at this, and then you can keep going with all of your board documents. But then, at least when we get to the part, like if I need something specifically on the agenda, like today, I'm like, no, I need to have this on the agenda. It's not enough for me to just talk about it during the search committee meeting minutes. There's information that I need. So can I just send it directly to you if we need, because I don't want there to be a whole separate step. We don't need a separate folder or anything. you know, but if I just send it all to you, and then at least you can all be aware that, hey, Lisa's gonna talk about this, and she probably wants, you know, a question or a decision or something like that. And then I'll just let you know if it has to actually be on the agenda or
Sounds
something.
good. I think that'll work.
Is that okay?
So you're sending it to Dan or the whole board?
I'll send it to all of you, just to make sure that you, especially eye it before the board meeting. And then I'll kind of tell you, like, I need a decision on this, or just so you know, this is what we're doing. If you have a question or something, then ask me at the board meeting, because I'll try to be at all the board meetings. Is that okay?
That's great.
Okay. All right,
I have a comment about the salaries.
yep.
I know we have a pay scale committee or task force. Do we want them to look at this right at this point, or is that maybe something for further down the road?
We could have them look at it. They traditionally only have done the teachers and the EAs. So that would be something new. My only concern is that they will only have like one meeting, and maybe they'll have a meeting in September if we're lucky. Whereas I can kind of make the search committee say, hey, we have to have meetings because the board told us to do this. I can't really say that to the pay scale committee because I'm
And they
not
usually
the chair of
come and
that.
play later in the
Well,
year.
and they don't meet
Right.
every year, because we don't have to go over it every year.
Right.
And it's different.
Right, but we do have to meet this year because of the EA
Yeah.
schedule, so that can't get lost, but yeah. So we could do that, but then we need Cecilia to tell them to do that, because she's in charge of that committee, not me, or task force, not me. All right, anything else? All right, so on the next page, then at the very top, so this is, it's kind of a continuation from the second page, but my comment is about the mission, the vision, and the values. So I have a lot of concern about changing the mission and the values, all of that stuff right now. I mean, and so I kind of have two reasons, just like philosophically, like there's so much change right now. And when you read all of the stuff about leadership, it says that the one thing that an institution should not do is to change their mission and vision. You know, and I get that you have to you have to go through the strategic plan, but you can keep the mission and vision. You don't need to change that. You can change other parts of the strategic plan without changing that. And I just feel like very strongly, not only from this committee, but my personal opinion too, just to let you know, that we shouldn't be changing that at this time right now. Because so many people came here because of, or they come here, they work here, whatever, because of the mission and the vision. And so, and it might be different parts of it. There might be math teachers who are here because of the math part. I'm here because parts of the values say, like, we value integrity and honesty. We have small class size feeling. We have accelerated curricula in all subjects. Those are the reasons I'm here. So if you change one of those, then I'm starting to think, wow, okay, COVID, administration change, they're changing the mission and the vision, and I start to have more doubts, you know, about what's kind of going on. And so I just think, like, as it is, like, I'm really nervous to start this year, and I've been a teacher for 20 years, and my blood pressure goes up whenever I think about teaching, but each time that I've kind of had some sort of interaction with Mrs. Dodge, a little bit down, right? A little bit like, okay, the ship is going to be righted. She is going to right the ship. Let's give her that chance to do that without changing the course while she's also trying to right the ship. You know, and so I just feel, you know, we have this great school. It's been the best school in the state for 3 years. Why would we change that? You know, so just kind of philosophically, I would encourage you not to change that. Thinking about more practically, as in the position that I come to you actually in, as the chair of the search committee, we've already started to do things that say the mission and the vision and the values. You know, so for example, the values clarification task force, they're going to send out their survey to the entire community, students, parents, teachers, everything, in the next couple weeks. And that's all based on, like, what people want, but it's all based on the mission and the values, you know? And even today, like, as soon as I'm done here, I'm leaving I'm going online in the other room to my other meeting that's happening, and I'm going to talk about the mission and the vision, because Jennifer, who is the chair of that task force, wants me to talk about that. So it's kind of like, we're going to have to go back and change a whole bunch of stuff in the search committee if we change the mission and the vision. So, because we're trying to find a person that fits the mission and the vision statements. That's, I feel like, what I've been charged with. My job isn't to find someone who is going to just be a director for any sort of mission and vision. My job is to find someone who will be good for our school, be a good fit. We all, well, I don't know. I've worked at a school where I wasn't a good fit. Could I keep being a teacher? Sure. But why? You know? And I don't want to come back in 2 years and say, well, we found someone, but they weren't a good fit. Now we have to go through this whole process again. So I just think I would at least encourage you that if you're going to change that, the search committee needs it by October. We really do. So I don't know exactly what your timeline was, but otherwise, you know, with the idea with that end goal to hire someone at the end of February or March, it will make it nearly impossible for us to get all of that done if we don't know what the mission and vision are, if that changes. And I mean, think about it from the prospect of someone who's looking for a job. They're gonna be going to our website and they're gonna be like, oh, okay, this is the mission and vision, I'm gonna plan what I'm gonna say, and then in February, when they show up for an interview, the mission and the vision is different, and we ask them a question about that, and they're like, well, I looked at it in November, and this is what it was. You know, we don't want anybody, we don't want to put a candidate in that position, and we want to make sure that everyone on all of the committees can tell a good story and can say this is what the mission and vision is. If we start to change it, then we're gonna have other people who don't, I mean, not everybody watches these meetings, you know? So, and even when you make those changes, it won't be in this meeting, it will be, I assume, like in a Saturday meeting or something like that. So the reasons behind it and the communication will be a stumbling block to some people to be able to explain and kind of market our school well if we're changing some of those things. So I don't know if anybody wants to make some suggestions or have comments, and that's just kind of my plea to you from the search committee, so.
Just a quick comment. So I think we're reevaluating it, if you will, the mission and vision. I would be really surprised if we full haul change it. I don't think that's the intent. The
Right.
intent is to go out, and I'm here for the same reasons that you are, because it seemed like the missions and visions fit what we wanted for our children, right? So I would be really surprised. I see it more as a tweak, if anything, and it's not changed at all yet.
Right.
I have the same concern from the expansion committee, because we're marching down a path and we're talking about, are we gonna change anything with the mission, and that has a huge implication to the expansion committee too. So I share the concerns. I think it's also fair to, every few years, reevaluate. Our administrator asks us to reevaluate every few years, are we still on the right path? So I think that's the intention, is not to make a big change. It's probably gonna be a few word tweaks here or there. I don't think it's gonna change anything too big, but I do think we're missing a few things that maybe we need to address moving forward so that everyone feels more included or what have you. And let's see how that plays out, because that's not necessarily in, or wasn't written 3-4 years ago in our mission, vision, and values. But I think, unfortunately, the timing is not great. I know we're talking to a guy named Bruce to help us, but we're kind of playing around with that timing of October, right? So that's
Yeah,
actually the
I
workshop.
mean-
October, November was the last time we talked.
Yeah, we could sure, you know, I think we could sure back up to late September if he's available. And that would maybe work out better for the task force, the search committee.
Yep.
So I was thinking before that I wanted to have detailed data about how students are doing to pour into the rest of strategic planning, but we don't really need it for the high-level work that the board will be doing, so we could go earlier.
I will say that I am significantly opposed to changing any of the language in our mission and vision. We review the strategic plan. We adjust the strategic plan so that we can meet that mission with where we are at. So if our class sizes are getting larger, then our benchmarks in the strategic plan are a small class feel. That doesn't necessarily mean you have a class of 10, but how do we foster an environment where you still feel like you know all of the people? So I think when we're talking about strategic review, you review the mission and vision not because we intend to change it, but because we want to make sure that we understand what that fully means as a board, so then the strategic plan accurately reflects it. And that's why, because for our authorizer, they don't want us to change our mission and vision. That's part of what they authorize. But that we review our strategic plan. And so I think what I would say is that it is too soon to suddenly in 6 weeks change it. If we want to really start tweaking that, that's something that we would do, and it would take a year or so. You know, so it's just, there's a couple of things that I think that we just really have to be very careful about. And I agree with Lisa about why people come to the school, but also just the reason you have a strategic plan that is like the meat behind the mission and vision is because that's how we can meet it when our school is changing a little bit, or if, if we start to see shifts there. So that's how we meet the mission while we have changes in our school. I don't think that the mission and vision statement needs alteration. I think there's a lot there, and that it is open-ended enough that if there are things we want to work on, then we work on that with our strategic plan.
I agree. That's exactly how I thought. I don't want to change anything, but if we could work on the plan
Yes,
to get
yes,
us
the
to where our
strategic
mission
plan.
is. I don't think
Definitely.
we should change anything.
So I have to be clear, if it came across, I don't want to change
Okay.
anything. I want to review it. I want to make sure that
We
we're
don't
all
wanna
nodding our
add
heads that this is
anything.
still correct, right?
Okay.
So, yeah, and it can stay the same as long as we're all saying it's okay. I don't like the road to Aberdeen or whatever it's called, where we're all just keep marching because that's what we did 3 years ago. I don't like that approach. I like us all nodding and saying, are we going in this way still? Everyone nod yes, then we keep going, right? So,
But I feel like I try, as a graduate of MSA, I try to make sure that I'm still living up to this mission and vision, that, this is the foundation that I started with. And I just want to put in a plug here, I finished my master's degree last week. So, that lifelong learners part, I think I'm living up to.
Yes.
That's great.
And global citizen.
I'm global citizen. And I'm here on the board. I mean, what more could we ask for from a graduate?
I love it. I agree. I actually think we have had problems meeting the mission vision. And so I think it's the lower layer to tease out, to make sure we enforce the mission vision. That we've gone so awry. I mean, I feel like since the 4 years I've been back, I mean, this is my 5th year back, because I left here for 4, left, came back. There was a major overhaul 3-4 years ago of the strategic plan, including the mission vision. I think it tweaked more from what I felt we were. I thought the language was good. And then I almost feel like we need to do the bottom end. We need to bring verbs in to make sure we do what we say. We haven't been doing what we say. We say what we do, but we're not doing what we say.
Understand.
So I feel like that is really something, and fair and equitable for everyone. I mean, really work on that aspect.
Well, you can decide what you want. I'm just saying I need to know at some point if you make those changes, And even like one word, if you feel that one word is significant enough to make a change, then I need to know kind of why that one word, so that I can change the focus of who we're looking for. So just, just so you're kind of thinking about that. All right, the next one is down in December, and so it's at the board meeting. And so it's on mine is number 3, I think. So last time when you evaluate, or when you had the interviews, I think Cody came up with the tool to do the evaluation. Do you, as a board, want to do that again, or do you want me to, once we have all the questions, to just like make a spreadsheet for you, or what do you want me to do with that, or how do you want me to help you with your evaluation of the candidates?
Well, the last time it didn't really work, so.
It worked in theory, except for whatever reason, it didn't like having us all,
Froze.
it froze up while we were trying to use it.
Yeah.
I think it was a Google Sheets thing.
It was a Google Sheet thing.
Google was
I
working.
like, we can do that on paper and then crunch the numbers. It would take 15 minutes to crunch the numbers.
Okay.
But if everyone was okay with that process. But we also found, I think, that once we actually went in to discuss it, the numbers, well, they already aligned with what everyone was thinking already, so
Yeah.
I don't know if it was that helpful of a tool.
Well, that's 20/20 hindsight, to say afterwards, oh, it aligned with what we were thinking, but the tool is the tool. We just need to give it more time for the forms to work, so we have additional information.
Yeah.
I think it was nice to be able to type in notes on the computer as we were going through the interviews.
Yeah.
I don't know how paper would work.
Well, we can figure it out. If you send out the link and change it from viewer and change it to copy, it forces everybody to make the copy of their own.
Okay, yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
But
Okay.
we can tweak it.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep my comment on here, because I'm gonna come back to you in the future and say, do you want me to do this, or are you taking care of it? Or are you just telling me you're gonna take care of it right now? That I don't have to do anything?
I will work with you to get it done.
Okay, perfect.
How about that?
Okay. All right, and then the next one, do you want 3 or 4 finalists? I think 3 is better because it's only 3 hours, 4 is 4 hours, unless you do some sort of panel discussion. Now, kind of thinking about this, just so you all know, we're planning to have the day at MSA. So the 3 or 4 finalists will come and visit all of the classes. Students will take them on students will like take them on tours. There will be student interviews. There'll be, I'm not sure how the teacher part's gonna work, but we did in 2012, so I can't remember how I did it before, but I'll figure it out. Maybe like right after school, they would have a chance to interview the finalists, and then a little bit later, like early evening, we'll have an open panel discussion where all of them are there and like parents can come in and ask questions. So we'll be in the gym, hopefully with COVID, that will still work. We'll have a microphone, all of those types of things. And so my expectation is that you guys would kind of be there during that day at MSA, like 1 or 2 of you would be in the classrooms, 1 or 2 of you would be with the teachers, well maybe the teachers would be with the teachers probably, and then 1 or 2 of you would then be at that panel discussion. And that would be one day, and then maybe like a week or 2 later, then you would actually have the board interviews. Because that way we can collect all the data from everybody else in a Google form and get that to you, and then it won't be, doing all that stuff in one day would be super, super long. So, so then I kind of just need to know, do you want 3 or 4 finalists? I think 3 is enough. If 1 cancels out, we still have 2.
I like
But-
targeting 3, but then I also like, you can go to 4, right? If you have 4 solid candidates, maybe. So target 3, and what do you guys think? Can you bring in 4 if you
Yeah, I
can't
think
decide?
aim for 3, and if one of them does pull out, then we have the 4th one that can be bumped up. I hope that's not too bad.
Or if there's you've got two candidates, you're like are totally shoe-in candidates, and then you're between 2 that are like kind of tied, and you think that they both be pretty awesome and we should meet them, but say we're on.
Yeah.
So I think what we're driving at is a minimum of 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then 4 based on judgment.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. And then my last question is kind of at the very end there, and that kind of goes along with the transition task force. And so I think that there were some communication issues with the transition task force as well, because the transition task force did have, like all the meetings set up so that everyone would be able to meet with the interim. They had, a list of, all of the resources that the interim would need, and the new transition task force will meet with the old one and with Ms. Dodge as well. But like this time, Ms. Dodge, I believe, had 7 meetings before she actually started here. That's not right to ask her to do that. She's not getting paid, and how can she say no? Like if somebody who is like her boss or something says, will you meet with me? That puts her in a really bad position. So I think it would behoove us to have kind of, some sort of a schedule kind of laid out, and it's not about controlling access, but it's about assigning access based on time. So thinking about when somebody is here for their first week, they don't want 40 hours of meetings with individuals. Because they're like, I won't remember at the end of the day, I met with 12 people today, I don't remember who was who and what they said. But we can probably bet that there are going to be a lot of people who call, well, probably you can testify, probably it's happened to you, that with the new director, like there's going to be a bunch of people say, I want to call it, I want to meet with you. And then that kind of puts the director in a predicament because they want to hear what's going on, they want to know and all of that, but having like a method to that makes a lot more sense. And so the transition task force, and I know there were some other things that happened kind of at the same time that probably caused some of the issues this time, but I think that we should allow the transition task force to kind of do their job this time. And of course, one of the first meetings that they would, assign would be to meet with, probably the officers of the board. Because that's going to be like one of the most important things to have happen. And then maybe there would be a meeting with the teachers from the board and the community members and the parents and, some of the different department members and, things like that. Because it's not fair for them to have to meet with everybody just because somebody asked to meet with them. And the last time around, like 2 days before the interim started, there were things that I didn't know if they had gotten done or not. Because the transition task force was supposed to do them, but other people were meeting with her, so I didn't know if the things got done or not, and there were emails that were unanswered, so at the end of the day, I just had to say, well, I don't know. And I'm sorry, like, I'm a planner, so that was really hard for me, like, to just give up and say, I don't know what happened. So, you know, I think if you don't want the transition task force to do that, you have the right to say that, but then you need to come up with a plan, because it's just not really fair to the person to be inundated, I can never say that word, inundated, with all these different requests and meetings and stuff, whereas the transition task force can also help to say like, hey, this is like the list of priorities, this is the big thing that's a problem right now that we need, you know, for you to work on, or, you know, things like that. So I don't know what you want to have happen with that. And, you know, once again, this was something that was in the board meeting minutes, but like nobody asked me about it, or, so I thought that what the transition task force had planned was all fine, because nobody said like, hey, we want to do it a different way, or, you know, whatever it might be. So, yeah, yeah.
So, I know it was in the board packet, but how do we keep, I wanted the transition task force to be in charge, but how do you keep people from going around the and scheduling meetings on their own? Who is the gatekeeper? Like,
I think that we need,
that's the problem.
right. And so I was thinking about this too, because you all knew, but we didn't publish it for everybody. Obviously, once the transition task force comes up with some sort of plan, then we should let the community know, hey, these are gonna be the touch points where you can have access to this person. And it's not about saying you can't ever, it's just, you can't have 40 meetings in the first 40 hours of your work. You know, you need to have some downtime. You need to set up your computer, and, you know, meeting with Justin needs to happen pretty much right away, right? So you can read your emails and do all of that kind of stuff. So I'm just kind of thinking that if we, I mean, you could make it a person on the board who could be in charge of that. Like, you're on the search committee too, so you could. Or myself, or we could just say that the transition task force can say, you know, this is during these first, you know, during this first month, you know, this is how the meetings are gonna go, or maybe these first 2 weeks. After that, if you want to be able to meet with the director, then you email the director directly. You know, just so we can get groups of people kind of done, you know. So, I mean, like, for example, I'm a teacher, I don't really need to meet with the new person, but as long as my department chair is meeting with the new person, okay, so if I have something, I'll tell my department chair. And then the department chair can kind of pass that on when the department chairs meet. Or, you know, some things like that. We can set up some elements like that so people feel that they can have their voices heard, because we're not trying to shut that down, but just in some sort of orderly manner, for goodness, you know, so.
You guys generally all right with the task force managing that? Yeah. More structured approach, give them a better chance for success, right? So.
Can I raise one comment about that?
Good,
though?
yes, please do.
So it's been very helpful to have the transition task force, and they sent me a nice list of things that needed to be done, and all of them are true, all of them are real things, but there were maybe a whole bunch more things that were priorities also that weren't on the list, and so I just, you know, that have to be done, had to be done early, and so I just want to make sure that the plan that you make for the permanent director isn't so tight that the permanent director's hands are tied.
Right.
Because I mean,
Right.
I got that plan and I was like, all these are great things, but some of them can't happen right now because there are other more pressing issues, you know, so. Because you hire someone to do the job and they're gonna bring their professional judgment on how to do the job. So, you need both and, I guess, as long as you have that understanding.
Well, and I want to speak to that too. You know, I thought we reiterated that the list was never meant to be the
You did,
only
you
outline.
totally did, yeah.
But actually, that's a great observation from your side, because all the side conversations of people going around us led to some additional uncertainty. So we didn't know what other people were telling you. So we couldn't even put together a list, not knowing what all these side conversations we're having. So it made us actually feel like, okay, this is gonna look like we're duplicating a lot of things, and we probably are, but there's some people that essentially refuse to talk to us. And it was the weirdest thing, and we just really need to set clear structure so that doesn't happen again. And it'll all happen, it's just prioritizing. So to your point, you're right, there are many things that you saw when you came in that we don't even realize. And we only had 6 weeks to make it all work, right? So, but with your input, that we've learned even that much more was a great learning experience for, I think, everyone. So the transition again will be that much better.
And maybe you and I can work on that too, or the transition task force can work on that too. So, all right, thank you. All right, so those are my questions for you. Those are the 4 or 5 questions, I guess, that I had for you. So I don't know if you have other questions for me. But otherwise, I'd like to have this approved later on at the board meeting tonight. So I think that it's on the agenda. So, and I'll be back later on. So if you do have questions later on, I'll come back in here in a little bit after I notify the meeting. But any other questions for
Thank you.
me?
Except for time, I might move it along if that's okay.
Yep.
Can
Okay,
this
I
one-
just have one question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to it, when the final candidates are there, how will, like, what will be the time frame? Will we have like a week or so where we see the resumes and stuff prior to that?
Yeah, you'll probably have a couple of weeks because we'll have to plan the day at MSA. So by that time, we'll know like 3 or 4 finalists, so then you'll have the resumes. And then after that day at MSA, you will have a week or 2 maybe, so you'll have that time to look at the resumes too. And yeah, and then you'll have the feedback from the community, so we'll send out a Google form for everybody. So, and you won't have to wait this time for it, so sorry about that. So, all right, thanks, I'll be back in a little while then. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. So the next one was, we're calling open meeting law, opinion, and board of director committees. And so this was brought up because we had some fantastic things that happened during our pandemic, right? I mean, we were able to Zoom in. We got a lot more participation via YouTube, via Zoom from our community members. And now that we're back and the executive order has been canceled, technically, the open meeting laws are back in place, right? We no longer have a reason to kind of go around the open meeting laws because they haven't been changed yet to keep up with the technology that we have. So that we can't change because it is, I mean, we can lobby, but it's going to take some time to get those changed, I'm expecting. So we asked for an opinion, or I asked for a legal opinion on how do we differentiate or decide which one of our committees are open meeting law required and how many are not. And selfishly, I did from the expansion committee because I quite enjoyed being able to quick Zoom in, get into the meeting. I'd have 10, 12 teachers and parents calling in, and then we would cancel and be done. And you can't do that with open meeting law because you have to, I have to put my address down, right? Or when I was traveling, I'd have to put the hotel that I'm down, and people would have to be able to go to my hotel room, which doesn't make sense to me. Or if you're driving, I know some people have been not driving in the passenger, you know, but called into meetings because that's how we time shift and geo shift things nowadays, right? So, so that was the intent. It's not to try to skirt our community. It's actually to try to help enable the community to be able to dial into more of these sorts of meetings. And we got two things we need to consider. So one is, do we have a quorum of board members? That's the legal opinion. So if you have 5. If you have 5 board members on the committee, technically we're having a meeting and we have to follow the open meeting laws. The second one is, are you making any decisions on behalf of the board? Has the board given authority to that committee to decide something? So if we look at those 2 things with the remaining 10, 15 minutes, I'd like to go through the committees that we have right now. It's all on the website if you want to bring it up on your device, but I was actually just going to go through one by one, and I'd like for us to kind of nod our heads. This sounds like open meeting, this sounds like outside, and that's given the legal opinion that we were given, we'll make that decision. And I guess instead of penning it down like we have the total authority, that'll be what we go under for now until somebody tells us otherwise. Is that okay for you?
Just a quick question
Yeah.
about the rules. So if a board, well, first of all, if there are 5 board members who are members of the committee, then absolutely it has to
Open
be
meeting.
open meeting,
Yep.
right? That is kind of the first standard. So the second one is, how about having a board member be the chair of the committee? I know we don't have 5, but then also it starts looking like you're controlling the vote.
That wasn't addressed. I can bring that back, but for now I was given a number. It's a fair point,
Okay.
of 5. So the example that was shared with us was where someone was trying to get in the open meeting laws for a director search. Actually, the University of Minnesota was used, and I think the Daily Press was the one used to say, we want to have access to all of the information that you used. And they were able to come back and say, we actually have no authority. We were doing, research to go through candidates to bring back to the school board. The school board meeting is the open meeting, just like we have task force. It's not required to post the agendas or what have you. So I'm still encouraging you to post agendas as early and as often as you can, but I'm just saying, if we can open this up a little bit more for flexibility. Right. Did you have a question? Okay.
And would we require committees to continue to post minutes?
I think that's a good practice. I feel like that speaks to our openness, integrity, and honesty and everything we're gonna, I don't think any of that should go away.
Okay,
I'm just trying.
and I agree with that.
Okay.
It's just, I don't want someone to misinterpret saying, okay, it's not committed to the board, no open meeting
Yeah.
rules need to apply, because some of them are great best practices.
Yep, and I think if we start seeing some kind of bad behaviors creeping up, we can readdress that. But for now, I'm gonna assume that we can manage our committees as open as possible. Yeah. Good question. So I'm gonna pick an academics committee. Do you have a quorum? Do you have 5?
We do not have a quorum.
Okay. But I did see
That
you
I'm aware.
approve changes to the curriculum.
We do, which is, I think this one does still need to be.
I agree, but okay, so I'm just gonna put an O on you for now. And my thought is, we'll have to see if we get so, I don't know how else to say it, but just so particular, but maybe on the website we can say these are open meeting, committees, and maybe other ones we change to task force.
I think that, yeah, if it's still a board, if it's a board committee, like if it's a board assigned committee, we can still call it a committee, but parenthetically, just put a little OM
Open meeting.
next to it.
So
which-
people know.
Which
So
are
it was
the
that.
open meeting law, because that also helps people know for location. Like if it's
Yeah.
one that they can expect or
That's true.
a Zoom link for.
Yeah, maybe
versus
we
like
can
a-
describe what the OM means,
Yeah, just have a
things
little
like that.
asterisk and.
That's a good idea.
And something like that, but yeah, when I was looking at your email and then I looked at like policy and I look at it, I was like, academic.
Yeah,
I might recommend you think about Dan's suggestion to change the ones to be named task forces if they're not subject to open meeting laws, just so it's clearer. And otherwise, I'm afraid we'll raise some concerns, so it might be something to consider.
yeah, good point. Annual fund, who's got this one? So Cody, you have this one.
Yeah,
Do we have a quorum?
we don't usually have a quorum. We haven't had a meeting yet this year.
Okay.
And
I saw like establishing annual goals.
Fundraising goals.
it's fundraising goals. I don't really think, they do fundraising and they do decide how to spend the money that's raised.
I'm not trying to influence it, but in the past, I recall the fundraising team coming and saying, we want to raise for laptops to the board, and the board said that's a good idea,
Right.
they catch on fire.
Yeah, we get, in the past, they have come to the board for final approval of what the money's gonna be spent on. So I would say they are not making,
So
they
they're
are
doing
making
research,
recommendations.
a recommendation come, okay, what, are you guys okay with that? Because the board approves what they do, but they come back with, here's where we think we need to go? Okay, so that would be a task force, let's just call it for that for now, so. Communications is, Maggie, is that you? Yeah. So where are we at with that one?
Well, and we even asked to be more of an advisory because we don't make decisions.
Yes.
We make recommendations.
And you don't have a quorum?
No.
Task force, you guys okay? Director search committee didn't have any, purpose on there. I think we have that separate, we maybe just didn't get it on the website, but what do you guys think? There,
I feel like we're giving them, in the open meetings, we're giving them direction. They're coming back with recommendations.
so maybe the director search task force with some additional sub-task force? Does that, something like that sound right?
Okay.
I mean, we do call it a task force, but, they're not formal decisions, but they make the first cut on candidates. I don't know where that plays
Yeah.
into a decision.
Well,
I
I
mean,
think it's the same
ultimately,
as
the
the U of
decision.
M one though, they were going through the first cut and they argued that it wouldn't be open meeting.
I think it's very similar to that one.
Yeah.
Maybe they'd have 100 resumes, but that's
Yeah.
not fair to
So
bring to the
if these
board.
are task forces then no more minutes in here, no more posting.
No,
That's-
I think it'd be good to still do minutes.
So then, are these task forces different
Can we say-
than a task force I might join
Yeah.
with the staff?
That's
Okay.
why I was wondering
Like the
about changing
calendar
it.
task force,
Yeah,
that's not the same thing.
that's why I was
So,
wondering about
I mean,
that.
if this is a task force, that's fine, but then it's not, I mean, and then you're saying, okay, we have committees, we have board task forces, and then we have
Yeah.
other task forces?
Admin task force, yeah.
Right.
Maybe we need another name. I'm okay if we just kind of break it down right now, so you guys can know, if you can flip to, I'm gonna do a Zoom next month at my meeting. That's kind of my intent. Maybe we need to come up with a better name for it, so that it's more clear. I don't know that we can do that today, but are you guys okay if we end up with 2 buckets on these ones?
Yeah. The other, we don't have to decide tonight, like you said, but the other thing I've seen is a committee of the board versus committee. So, committee of the board, committee, task force, could be like that too.
Yeah, I think I would too.
I like that.
Is that down here? Committee of the board. Elections committee. Cody, I think you had that one, is that right?
Yes. Never had a quorum. And then, again, we're not making decisions, we're bringing recommendations for approval.
Sounds like a task force. In the current.
And then, yeah, and then, you know, we collect the data from the election and we bring it here for approval.
Yeah.
And that's the only meeting.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I think
Well, we have a meeting beforehand
Oh,
to
right. The
to set up
process,
the,
kind of the process meeting.
yeah, there's a couple meetings, but it's, I'd say it'd be more of a, yeah, it'd be not, we're not making,
Will this one go away in the fall? Can we close that one down in the fall?
no, we do it every year because we have to
Going
re-elect the board
ongoing.
members.
Okay.
I mean, it's not active year-round, but it is active every year.
Yeah, that's fair. Finance, is you again, Cody.
Yeah, so we don't have a quorum, and we don't make big decisions, we bring that to the board, but some small decisions we do make, so I suppose that one should be open.
I think that's important enough to open,
Yeah.
do an open meeting.
Okay.
And yeah, even if, that's a big topic, it needs to be open. Even if we're not making decisions on our own, just recommendations, it needs to be.
Okay.
Because I think that's one of the things that needs to be the most transparent.
And I don't want the transparency to be the differentiating between open and not. I think we can have them both transparent, but I want to know, like, the letter of the law, we need to make sure we follow that, and then can we have some flexibility in terms of, location shifting for the rest of them?
I think we also, maybe if there's time, need to talk about, is it still open if it's just open for Zoom?
Well,
Or
if
does
we
it
do an
have to
open
be-
meeting that way, we have to put, my understanding is 3 days in advance, your location. And at least the board members have to put their location. So your home address or your coffee shop or wherever you're calling into the meeting, that's the rule I'm trying to help us with, is
Okay.
that
So
seems a little bit
Finance
old-fashioned.
has been here, and then some members have been Zooming in.
And I think technically we're not supposed to do that without posting where we're at. So the agenda, once posted, seems to say,
The agenda does say where the physical meeting is happening.
yes, but every board member needs to put where they are as well.
These were non-board members that were Zooming
I
in.
think that's okay. I believe if you're not a board member, you can still Zoom in, but the board members need to post where they are.
Okay.
And so like the next one is expansion committee, selfishly pushing that one to see how we can get that one to be more friendly with technology. And that one was given the legal opinion that that one can be considered a task force. So we can do that one remotely because it'll be doing research again, bringing it back to the board saying, here's where we think we need to go, please help us decide, right?
Actually, that might be a question for Jim Martin, because we designated it as we want it to be open, but it's not required. So perhaps that might mean that the board members who are present aren't required to give their addresses. You see the difference?
No, try again.
Because if we had a quorum, then all the board members would need to submit their
Yes.
addresses, and it's mandated to be an open meeting. But we're just choosing to treat it as an open meeting, as in terms of having it on Zoom, but we don't have a quorum. Therefore, we may not need to have all board members present publish their.
That's true.
address.
Well,
Just because
I
we
think
say it's an
we're-
open meeting doesn't obligate us to the open meeting law.
Correct.
We're talking about, is it an open meeting or is it a meeting open to the public?
Right.
Which
So-
they all should be. I think we should
Yeah,
have.
no, but I mean, that's,
Taking
I
notes
mean,
for
if,
this is.
yeah, so Jennifer, you got that straight. No. We can talk afterwards, but I do think.
I got
You say tomato, I say tomato.
I know.
I mean, that's the differentiator if we're worried about addresses, so.
Personnel
gonna
committee, I'm
clarify?
looking to you, Annie, because you have more history there.
Yeah, so my history is, it used to be big decisions, but since I've been on it for 2 years, it's basically getting, job descriptions together, or doing the evaluation process together, but it always comes back to the board for the approval. It's the teasing out. So I don't know. I mean, since I've been on it, I think it was a whole different thing back in the day.
Did we have a quorum?
No.
No?
Is there a possibility, like, so if we have all 4 teacher members of the board at that meeting and then a 5th one shows up, is there a high possibility for that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we have 4 people. I'm thinking, I don't need to talk about that later, but, yeah, we don't have a quorum. And I think it's just, who else is on there? I think it's just me as a teacher.
So I think the one thing now that I'm helping lead this personnel committee, I'll just make sure that our purpose is clearly not deciding anything, right? So I'll make sure that any word that sounds like it is, and we'll label it as a task force for now,
Yeah, 'cause I
and we'll
don't-
change that word to
don't
whatever we
think it-
decide.
yeah.
Okay? Eric, yes. Building and safety, I have never seen anyone on this one. I would like to get it off the website until somebody says otherwise.
I've been with the building company, but that is separate.
Separate.
So.
It just says
this is-
TBD.
This has been a matter of much confusion, and I have asked for clarification for multiple years about why this is the case, because we have a task force that teachers signed up that is building safety, and then there's a board committee that is building safety. And it's purposely separate, and they were separate for a reason,
Why?
but I never got to know the reason.
And
It was because
I
there's
think we deleted it.
something weird with like the board committee, there's some difference in its purpose. That might be a Jim question. I don't have Jim access, but like, that might be a Jim question, because
This
it's
is-
based on like a specific thing, but.
Sorry to interrupt, but I got the purpose here. It's snow removal, building repairs, cleaning services. This is admin stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
This is a duplication. That needs to change, or it's the duplication of what we have, in my
Well-
opinion.
Well, and that's exactly it. It didn't meet. Right. Like, if you
And we're
look
not
at- if you
meeting
look at
because
their
there's no
numbers,
minutes.
It's
that's-
April of 2016 on the
Exactly.
website.
If you look at
That's
2016
the
is
most
the
recent
last-
right now.
Yeah.
So,
And before that,
But then the teacher group
October
for
of
building safety
2015.
didn't meet either because
Right.
there was confusion about what their vision is. Because some of this building safety needs to be coming up with and working on our safety plan, which we are not in compliance with our policy.
Mm.
So like,
But I would
somebody
rather-
has to actually do safety.
I would rather it come that way, which is we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, board, help us, and then we task that to a group of people. Everyone raise their hand, who's gonna help do that? Right now, it's just sitting there and nobody's doing anything for 5 years.
It's on a board committee.
No,
Well,
it makes a lot more
if
sense
you
to
would
have
be
it.
willing to ask Jim or Eugene, or maybe email Eugene or something, because there's a reason why it was a board committee, but I
Okay.
never got a real
What would be
clarification
the
of what it
question we
was.
would ask them?
Is that what statute or policy is a board building and safety committee based on?
Or is it required by statute?
Exactly, like what is the statute or what is the policy? Because this is not what, I don't know what that is.
Okay.
And so that's where my confusion came in.
It's close to being off the website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very
And it's
close.
totally fine for it to be, it's just, yeah, and then somebody has to actually do safety,
Yes, yes.
like evacuation, like the actual safety.
Next one, the MSHSL Activities Liaison. I'm at a loss on why
That
that's
is-
there.
Well, that would be.
The AD?
Yeah.
That's a
athletic-
person, it's not a committee.
Yeah, athletic director, but what doesn't, either is
The
the person or
MSHSL
doesn't.
liaison is still a board committee, but do you need to be open meeting committee?
I don't
Which
think,
one, the COVID one?
No,
No.
the Minnesota State High School League.
No, I don't know why that would be a.
Yeah.
I also
meeting. I mean,
don't.
the Minnesota State High School is gonna govern what we can do, whether
That's
the
what I
board
thought.
likes it or.
Right.
I mean,
That all
it's not-
goes through.
I'm
that
not trying to
all
be
goes
that
through you.
direct, but they have they got a book like this
Oh,
big with the rules.
So if you're right, I'll take
Yes.
that off
Yes.
this particular part of the website. Okay. Policy, Michelle,
Policy, we don't make decisions. We
you bring it
just bring it
here.
to the board, so I don't think we
Task
need
force,
to.
I think, right?
Yeah.
And no quorum.
Nope.
The last one's technology. I see my name attached to this one, but no chair. So I guess I was thinking about that one because I feel a little guilty that my name is on there. And I haven't done anything. So I would like it to be, we need to have some specific thrust, like what is it that we need to do? The board tell whoever it is in charge that you do this, and then that purpose will be written, and they would do that and close it. Not just in general, but what do you guys think? Otherwise, I'm not doing anything, and maybe I should have been.
I just don't know the purpose of that committee.
Agreed.
If the purpose is listed to promote the use of technology, in teaching,
We can thank
It's a little
Roman for
vague.
that, yeah. That seems like an administrative function.
Sure
Yeah,
does.
and I've been on that task force, or sorry, that committee, I've been on that committee previously, especially when we were gearing up to roll out our full one-to-one. Because we were like researching models and doing some things like that. And Justin had a whole bunch of contacts, so he came to us with a lot of those ideas and things, and we did, we kind of sussed it out a little bit. It still then went to the board. Because it was money.
So I guess the question is, I think task force is clear, and then it's whether it is existing or not, or if we have it under the admin umbrella.
Right.
I think it's under the admin, because I mean, we get, like, even this last year, we got no help from them anyway, we just did what we needed to do.
And
So-
we have a lot of intentions of helping, talk about improving instruction by using technology, so it's under the administrative purview.
That's my list, go ahead.
It'd probably come to the board, partially in finance.
Well, and that might be partially a curriculum committee function,
Yeah.
and it's on the learning side.
It's kind of in the middle between the two.
I would say probably more finance, only because if you're looking at learning software and stuff like that, you're not changing the curriculum. The technology is usually fostering, so it'll be the same textbook, but it's a digital version too, or stuff like that. So usually it's not
Or,
actually
Well,
improving.
so here's an example issue that no one teed up, is should everyone use the same LMS, like Google Classroom?
yeah,
For years,
no, I know.
and no one made the argument, no one teed up the issue, so we had like 3 of them before you got here, until last year we finally said Google Classroom. So that could have been handled by the committee.
But
Beyond that, I don't know.
That sounds like a fantastic purpose, evaluate the 3, learning
Exactly.
platforms and pick one for us. And that
Yeah.
would be a succinct, goal, done.
Now, is there another issue
There
of
may
that
be.
magnitude? I don't know.
Well, and that even went to communications committee because that was the link, what was on the website for people to access teacher material. So
Right.
yeah, but I still think, I agree with Cecilia. I think it's still an
Yeah,
admin
I
umbrella.
actually agree with that, we're fine, no committee operationally for the director.
So I will work with Justin to update the website a little bit, and we'll figure out, and then if you guys have any better names that you think of, otherwise maybe I'll give some thought to how we differentiate or put them in separate sections or something like that.
Well, and then, yeah, so then, if we've moved it to a task force, it's still considered one of the things on here.
I mean, if it's on the board page, I would say we should have that in the board
Okay.
packets. Please
Okay.
give us the agendas
Okay.
like you did before.
Okay.
We're just allowing a little more flexibility in how you attend
The
that
Zoom
meeting.
link, the Zoom
And
link.
zooming
Because then you
in.
can have the Zoom link, you
Yes,
can do,
yes.
okay.
I
So
think
that was a fantastic benefit. Not everything was great during the pandemic, but that was one of the things that I think we learned worked, right?
So it's more about how we plan the meetings, not the aftermath of the meetings.
Yeah, I think the
Aftermath,
aftermath of
we all
notes is a
send
good
in
practice. Yeah, I don't,
That's great. Meeting minutes should be accessible to everyone.
yep, good. Well, can we adjourn the workshop? We have 10, 15-minute break till 6:15, okay?
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Can somebody help close the YouTube, or I guess the mic? Please. guys ready?
Are we ready?
It's showing talking bars again,
Are
right?
we ready?
Yep, it's showing talking bars.
Go on. All right, welcome everyone to the August MSA board meeting. Not yet required to wear masks in MSA, I think that starts tomorrow, but feel free to wear them as you're able and comfortable with. I'm gonna take mine off and I'll ask if you feel comfortable to take it off while you speak for the sake of the microphone. I think that makes more sense so people can hear at home. But if you're not, consider wearing a mask while you're not speaking. So we have our agenda today. We're going to start it at 6:15. Maggie, could you read the mission and vision for us, please?
Our mission is that we provide accelerated curricula in all subjects with an emphasis on math and science. And the vision is to be an innovative, sustainable model of academic excellence that creates well-rounded, lifelong learners and global citizens.
Thank you, Maggie. So we'll do a roll call. Dan Ellison here, Maggie Bergerath,
Here.
Corey Schneid,
Here.
Jennifer Barlow,
Here.
Eric Fair, here, Jeff Peng,
Here.
Michelle Karkowski,
Here.
Annie Cardenas,
Here.
Sandy Overson. And we don't have the student member here. I think we got a new one in September.
Yeah.
So, great. I would like to approve the agenda. So any changes, I'm aware of one, right? I think we're gonna-
Yeah, we need to change the policy from consent
So
to
do we make
discussion.
a motion?
Yeah, so should we want to make a motion, Michelle?
Yes, I motion to amend the agenda so that 10A, approved policy 531, be moved to 12D, to create a 12D.
I can second that. Any discussion? In fact, yeah. So policy will have its own line item, 531. All those in favor?
Wait,
Oh, go ahead.
Also, I'd like the line item of JR Computer Associates moved for just a question for discussions rather than consent.
Okay,
So I guess, so I moved that be moved to discussion.
anyone second that one?
I will second that one, and that's to 12E now, is that right?
Yes,
Okay, is this a different motion?
yes.
Move consent agenda
Item,
10D to 12E. Yes, and then I just didn't know what F other was, I didn't get that. Is
I
that,
don't think we have another, I don't think
Okay.
we have any
that was just a placeholder.
Maybe, sorry.
All right.
So then
Okay.
when we vote, is it to vote on both motions for amendments?
We can just vote on the first one.
Okay.
All of those in favor of policy moving to discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then the JR, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, both motions pass.
Who seconded the second motion?
Annie did.
Annie.
And I think, I was just trying to think, one thing I'm trying to get us to do is, how do we get the agenda to stay? It doesn't have to stay, but to have less changes so that we don't, I can't keep track of it all the time, this is only two. But, and I was thinking, we may not even know the questions until we see the board packet. So it's like I'm trying to force the agenda to be fixed on a Wednesday so we can make the board packet, and then you don't get it till Friday. But let's do our best to, if you have questions or concerns, we can move it to discussion right away, just move it forward, if you know. Okay, so I think then we can do approval of the agenda as a whole with those changes. So I will motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second, Ms. Maggie.
As amended.
As amended, thank you.
Although, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, good. So, and I didn't ask any conflict of interest, but I guess speak up if you have a conflict of interest. So looks like none. The next one we have is open forum, and we do have some members in the public. What I would say is, so that's fantastic, and I'm really happy to see people here. I want to address the folks that may be watching online. In the past, we have had an opportunity for you to email in comments. We did read those when we were doing the Zoom and YouTube combo, and we are no longer doing those. I would say, please come in person. If you can't make it in person, I would be happy to read it, but I need to know your name. So I won't read anonymous ones because that's not really fair to the community. So if you put in your name and are willing to have me share your name, then I will read it if you can't make the meeting for a funeral or for whatever your reason is. But otherwise, please come, because that's the way that we've done it in the past. Doesn't make it right, but I think it's more fair for everyone if you stand up and say what your feelings are. So,
And are you saying that you will read them for a more extenuating circumstance?
yes, for an extenuating circumstance, because we can play with it in the future. We do have some, we need to figure out a way to be more flexible to accommodate people who maybe can't make it. I'm happy to accommodate, but I am going to ask that we still keep names just to keep it fair. So. Good. Open forum. I didn't grab the sheet, but maybe, yeah. Dr. Olson, if you could pass me, thank you. And thank you very much. So I have 3. And I would ask, as you come up, if you're able to stand, please stand here so that we can kind of get it onto YouTube and get your feelings out. Speak up, again, as you're able to, because I think the mic is sitting up in front. So we've allotted 15 minutes, but I'm not going to hold you to that. Just try to keep your comments brief and to the point as best you can, all right? So first one I have is Zach Swanson on the topic of masks.
Good evening. First off, I want to thank you all for your guys' time tonight. My name is Zach Swanson. I will be a sophomore here at MSA in a couple of weeks, or at least I hope so. If you continue to mandate masks in high school, there's a strong chance I will not attend MSA this fall. Please allow me to explain why. Number 1, high schoolers and middle schoolers have the opportunity to obtain the vaccine by now. Those who have not received the vaccine, even with monetary reward from the state, are doing so by choice. Let those who are in high school and middle school go maskless this year to agree to let masks be recommended, not by mandatory for high school students. We usually follow lead of our local district. Why would we switch on this issue? Even experts do not know the long-term effects of mask usage on the development of students. Wearing masks does not allow for effective communication in many circumstances, as people cannot see or express themselves in a full view. This will have profound lasting effects on our students for decades to come. We need to put a stop to this. Number 3, as an opportunity to wear N95 respiratory masks would make more sense to wear in school. However, costs do not allow, nor would N95 masks be necessary for a disease with such low morbidity or death rates. Cloth masks were never designed to be effective at reducing the transmission rates. Several meta students have proven this fact. In fact, a study of 44 mask brands showed, quote, no protectivity function in terms of the aerosol filtration efficiency. The filtration rates of cloth masks against the viral transmission makes them utterly useless. N95 masks are better, but nobody is talking about students wearing N95 masks during the school year this year. Number 4, we cannot be run by those living in fear. These people have an opportunity to homeschool or to wear optional masks if they do not want to. However, forcing all students to wear a mask regardless of vaccination status only reduces the need for the vaccine in the first place. In fact, several students who are forced to wear masks during the gym classes or other athletic events have fainted and died. My final reason, we now can evaluate status with mask mandates versus those that do not. Evidence shows that there is little difference in transmission rates between those states mandating masks and those that did not. The same can be put, cloth masks are not an effective way to prevent the spread of COVID and are doing more harm to our students learning than health precautions wear them. The New England Journal of Medicine writes in 2020 that we now know that wearing masks outside healthcare facilities offers little, if any, protections from infections. In many cases, the desire for widespread masking is reflective to anxiety over the pandemic. My mask wearing should not be mandated by others to worry over catching a virus with a 99.99% survival rating. To sacrifice children's learning and safety for the same of unvaccinated adults who have the opportunity to get vaccinated simply makes no sense. You have an important you have an important decision to make tonight. Continue a year like last year with required masks and little social interaction will doom our generation and put us even further behind. In this, it is with confidence and based in actual science and peer review studies, and I can say if MSA decides to mandate masks, I will not be part of it. I know I am not the only one who feels this way. MSA is a critical crossroads for its future. We are coming off of a year of scandal, COVID, and distance learning. It is time to get back to normalcy. This means no masks. Thank you for your guys' time.
I know we're not supposed to comment, but I really appreciate a student coming up, because I don't think that takes a lot of courage, so thank you for doing that. I really appreciate, and also having such a well-defined discussion, so thank you. Next up, I have Nate and coaches.
Actually, can I go first?
You can, yep. So this is Jessica, coaches.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jessica Kotvis, and I'm gonna read a letter written by my daughter, which was, originally she sent it anonymously, but, and she wants you to know that she's really uncomfortable. She'll say in her letter why she's uncomfortable and wanted to be anonymous. Okay. Hello, MSA board members. I am a 9th grader this year, and I wish to stay anonymous because I don't want to be treated differently by the board members or my upcoming teachers for what I'm about to say. I am asking that students and teachers have the choice to wear a mask if they want to. But teachers should support students either way. I am not asking you to not wear a mask because it would make me feel comfortable, because that is exactly what you are doing to us right now. Iris.
Thank you very much. Nate? So, Kotvis.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Nathan Kotvis, parent of a student, Iris Kotvis, attends here. Thank you for providing this open forum for people to communicate. The reason why I'm here is for the mask, and to say is to get your information from the media is a, how you say, poor leadership or poor poor character. If you're trusting the media, you have to go and look and read. There's peer reviews regarding masks and their effectiveness before this was all politicized. So if it was to be said masks can go ahead and protect, the information is already there. But there's something more nefarious going on here. As a parent, I'm here to sit there and say that if you relegate to yourself what is best for my children, then know this, then you relegate to yourself as this administration, as this school board, you're opening yourself up to civil lawsuits or even suit against the school. And when the school doesn't go ahead and provide recompense, we're gonna come after each and every one of you because you're telling me as an adult what is best for my kids. So, therefore, I want you to tell me what mask is good for my student in here. Is it this one? Is it these? Because if you're going to institute a standard, it needs to be applied to every student because you're choosing to say, I'm going to protect you from something. But I encourage you to go ahead and buy any box of masks, any that are out there. And they'll have literature that will say something to this degree. This mask is not a respirator and is not intended for general purpose practices. When properly worn, it reduces potential contact by the wearer to fluids, but does not eliminate the risk of contracting any virus, disease, or infection. Change mask immediately if contaminated with blood or bodily fluids. This is a disposable and a single-use item. So how are you guys going to go ahead and measure when a mask has been contaminated by a student? What are your processes for that? You don't have a process because it's easy for you to mandate against something, but again, you have the authority to go ahead and do that, which is an apparent authority, because you're telling me as a parent, I don't know best, but you do. So therefore, there's consequences for that. Because if my child gets a bacterial infection in their lungs because wearing a mask a day in and day out, or the increase of the CO2 level in their bloods makes learning very difficult and makes a person more susceptible for disease and infections, you're going to be held responsible for. Other information that I've come across, and I choose to go ahead and read. It is the Emergency Use Authorization 21 USC Section 360 BB-3. And it deals with why are school boards saying masks need to be required? And typically the answer is saying to slow or prevent the spread of the said disease. What does the FDA specifically state? Masks are not to be used as a reduction or prevention of viruses. So then if you go ahead and sit there and say that if you read the information under the 21 USC section 36 BB-3, it really boils on down to it. To date, masks are authorized for use by the general public as an investigatory product. So if it's investigatory, the verdict is still out. But obviously, if you're going to mandate the mask, you're going to tell us what to use, because it's going to be fair and equal across the board. Because I want my daughter to be protected from someone else wearing a mask that's not protecting. So, in going back to this 21 USC section 36 BB-3, it boils down to date, masks are authorized for the use of general public as an investigatory product under an emergency use authorization. They are not an approved product and are referred to in the law as unapproved products because they have not been fully tested and approved for use by the FDA. Under the federal law that allows the FDA to issue EUAS 21 USC section 360 BBB-3, no person can be forced to wear a mask face covering. The law provides recipients of a product authorized for use under the EAUs can refuse to take the products. The mask/face coverings is the product. So if you're going to go ahead and require the students to wear masks, you've changed your position to where now you're requiring them to wear PPE. And underneath personal protective equipment comes as a different definition because it's to protect them. So I advise you on the board to use your time and thought process very wisely what mask you're going to mandate the kids. Because personal protective equipment refers to protective clothing, helmets, gloves, face shield, goggles, face masks, and or respirators or other equipment designed to protect the wearer from injury or the spread of an infectious or illness. Effective use of a PPE includes properly removing and disposing of contaminated PPE to prevent exposing both the wearer and other people to infection. Face masks should not be used in place of a surgical mask or a filter face piece respirator to provide protection such as liquid barrier protection, antimicrobial or antivirus protection, the prevention or reduction, respiratory protection, particulate filtration, protection in high-risk aerosols generating procedures. So, this is my position as an adult for my child. You're choosing to make a decision for me. I can't, I'm not here to threaten you, but I'm going to sit here and say that if you take away that decision, if my child comes in and gets COVID because we chose to let him go to school, I'm okay with that. Because I then ask the question, did my child get COVID? Because the CDC says there is no test to this date that's able to identify COVID. How do they identify the Delta? They have no test out there. Where did the influenza go last year? I encourage you to look on the CDC website. Don't ask, like, I'm not gonna give you the facts. I want you to look for yourself. If you look at the the death rates for the last 15 years, things have been consistent. Under COVID, the death rates is still the same, but it has cured cancer, it has cured influenza, it has cured heart disease, it has cured many other things. But these people that have been dying have comorbidities. So it's not necessarily COVID's killing them, but COVID added to that. So that's why I want you to become informed. And the only way you can become informed is by you looking. And as people sitting on this board, we trust you to do the right thing. But if you make a decision, you will be held accountable for it. So if my child's going to be required to wear a mask, then you tell me what my child's mask that she's supposed to be wearing. And when you tell her that, that becomes a PPE. And then the responsibility comes to yourself. And as the gentleman said here lately, if you want to go ahead and get the COVID shot because you feel that it protects you, you can do that. If you want to wear a mask because it feels that it protects you, go ahead. But if you take away my right as a parent, then by gosh, if I sit there and abuse my child, I could be reported to children and youth and my child be taken away. So what gives you guys the right to abuse my child, masking them and they breathing in that CO2 over and over? Have you guys done a study on acidosis in the blood, how that affects learning? Of the hardship that they got to carry? Or if they go out and exercise, you breathing in and out, in and out? It's a very cruel thing that you guys are doing to that, based on if you're just getting your information from the news media. All the information that I've got, and as a parent, I've got by reading medical peer articles that are out there. That is all politicized out of it. It was done years before. So I encourage you to go find that and see what the information states. But I don't want my child to be abused by anybody, and that's including you. I'm okay for my daughter to come to school and not wear a mask. And if she were to get affected, I will not blame you because influenza. People get sick. It's our way of life and freedom here in America. And I'm okay with that. I implore you guys to do the right thing. Because you've been elected, you're sitting on the board, and you are unappreciative sometimes. You have to make hard decisions, I get that. But I implore you, do not pick up this decision because as a parent, I'm not going to sit by. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Katis,
Yep.
for the well thought through discussion, and I appreciate everyone. Yeah, I appreciate everyone coming. That's the last I had on my list. Did anyone else want to speak? Nope. Okay, just want to double check. So, yeah, really, I think that's great. And in the past, we've read letters over the past year or so, and it's nice to have people come in face to face. So thank you for doing that, Chris. Okay. Next up is the approval of minutes. And so we have the board workshop and regular meeting. This is item 5. Any questions, concerns? Did Jennifer do a good job? Amazing.
Yeah, she did. I pulled it up, very good.
So
I
the,
didn't catch anything.
I didn't either, yeah.
I didn't either.
So I will make a motion then that we approve the agenda and minutes as in the packet. Can I get a second?
This is Maggie, I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, good job, Jennifer. Chair's report, so I'll take item 6. First off, I want to congratulate Cody. Just learned you got your master's degree, so well done. And setting a good example of a continuous learner. So good job on that. I have, I'll just give an update from the workshop that we had before here. So we had two topics. One was we went through together with Ms. Anderson on how we can help together as a board alongside the committee with the permanent director search. So I think some more things to come on that, but they're doing a great job there in informing the board on where decisions are needed. The second one was in an effort to kind of keep some of the benefits that we had during the pandemic, we're exploring the opportunity of which committees of the board need to be following the open meeting law. And what that does for us is it allows us to have more participation, we feel, and hopefully more openness by, is everything okay on that?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
good. More openness in terms of allowing everyone to zoom in, YouTube, whatever the technology that we used to use in the past, the last year and a half. That actually went away when the executive order went away, so we had to go back to posting every 3 days in advance and also attending in person, but not everyone's able to. So we went through, and I won't go through each and every item, but if we have a quorum of board members, or if we have any decision-making outside of the board, those still need to follow the open meeting law. Otherwise, we're going to change the name and make it more of like a task force of sorts. It'll still be kind of advised by the board, but those task forces will bring back the decisions to be made at the board. So I'm asking everyone, and I'll do it again publicly, let's not drop any of the communication that we've done before in any case, make it more open by allowing people to zoom in and call in remotely if able. So please look into the technology if you're able to. Allow the people to zoom in or whatever, Google Meets or whatever it is that you guys want to do. And hopefully, I believe that this will help increase participation, which is what I saw in my committees versus normally face-to-face. The last thing I'll just mention just briefly on the investigation. The investigation that we have been now on for a number of months is continuing. I've been given updates periodically, so I feel comfortable that the investigation is moving in the direction it needs to be. I can't make any comments on any findings from the investigation just yet, but I will say that it's moving forward at the pace that it needs to move forward. Our administrators have asked us to do, at any expense and any length of time, an investigation to figure out if there's any truth to the allegations. So we're doing that. So I can't say it'll be done this week or next month because that goes against our administrators' request that we leave it open to whatever they need to do. So the normal sort of things, interviews, discussions, going through data documents, that's going on, and that's all I can really say about that right now. But I don't want to be totally quiet on it because then it leads to more speculation. So all I can say is it's ongoing, unfortunately. That's it for the chair's report. I think next up is the executive director's report.
Thank you, Chair Ellingson, and I'm going to try a PowerPoint tonight, and we'll see how that goes. And a number of you have asked me to talk about a number of things. I'm going to hit a lot of things kind of high level to make sure I don't take up too much time. The first is talking about the fall plan for coming back to school in person and the COVID-related aspects of that. And I wanted to share, first of all, that we did a survey of, let's see, hopefully this works. Survey of staff and families and students and community members, just for a week or so. We got 465 responses, which I thought was pretty good, just over a short period of time. And thanks to Dr. Hinton for putting this together for me. We wanted to share that a lot of the people who responded were parents and quite a few students and some staff and some folks who identified as community members. And I wanted to share that parents, so the blue bar is people who are very comfortable with the COVID protocol that we shared earlier this month. I actually updated it on yesterday. So parents, students, staff reported being very comfortable, almost half, and then the red bar is comfortable, and then up to neutral. So more than 75% of the parents, students, and staff who responded are at least okay with our COVID plan, if not better than okay. So we wanted to share that, and the COVID plan is coming back in person because we know that's important to almost everyone. A few people, I'll tell you, would have preferred an online option. We'll talk about that in a minute, but in person, and then with masks, because we have 11-year-olds here who are not able to get vaccinated yet, and because we know that the Delta variant is highly contagious. And so, you know, wearing our masks is about protecting others, and especially with 11-year-olds who are not able to get vaccinated yet, we feel it's important, and most of the metropolitan school districts are doing the same thing. And then the people who are not comfortable with the plan, same as our comments tonight, making masks a personal choice was their preference. And of course, I don't think any of us really want to be wearing them, but this is what the CDC and MDH are recommending for us. So the rest were all really small. We had like 7 folks or so who really wanted us to have a full-time online option. We know that many school districts are offering that, and MDE actually has opened up the process quite a bit more, but with so much transition here and being a small school, we didn't feel we could get a full-time online option off the ground for August 31st that we could be proud of. So we've had to say we don't have one. I think we have lost a couple families because of that. It was a hard decision, but we can't pull it off. Oh, that's for later. So that's all of my slides for now about COVID. One of the things I wanted to share about our fall plan is that returning in person, even if we do have to wear masks, is so much what staff and students want because of last year, and having that sense of normalcy to be back in person where learning is more effective. We have gotten a new cleaner, and our buildings are noticeably cleaner, and I think that's really important. And I've had many people comment on the fact that the buildings are already noticeably cleaner, and that's gonna help us a lot. We are strongly recommending that people get vaccinated if they're able to get vaccinated. We're hopeful that the vaccine can come for younger kids soon. That will help us, and maybe at that point we can reconsider masks. It's really hard to know. But we are actually offering, Washington County is gonna come on our back to school night and offer free vaccines. Don't have to bring any money or any insurance cards or anything. For anyone who's 12 and up who's not yet vaccinated and wants to get vaccinated, they can do it at our back to school night. We know that there's a recommendation for 3 feet of social distancing, not 6 feet any longer. We will do our best to achieve that. Everyone who knows our schools knows that some parts of our buildings, our classrooms are small and we cannot achieve it. And that's another reason to make sure we're taking good care by masking. I mentioned we're not gonna offer a full-time online option at this time, but we are approved should our numbers go so high that we all need to shift to distance learning for a short period of time. Fingers crossed, you know, that we don't have to, but we stand ready to do that shift, and we're approved through MDE to do that shift. I think it's just important to share with you that we have to expect that this is out of our control and that changes can happen. And if we expect that, then maybe it's less stressful. Some people have asked what criteria we'll use to determine that we don't have to wear masks anymore. And when the Minnesota Departments of Education and Health and Centers for Disease Control no longer recommend masking inside of school buildings, then that's when we'll look at that. So that's the criteria we'll look at, is the recommendations from experts. When will this COVID plan end? Likely it'll shift and change, but not end, but hopefully masking can end at some point. We really would much prefer kids to be able to see their faces and talk without a mask on. We are a small school with wonderful staff and wonderful students, and that allows us to give kids and staff breaks from their masks. To step outside, we have many wonderful places outside of our buildings that are close. We're close to exits almost everywhere in our buildings, and we will make it easy for kids to step outside and have a mask break. We'll take frequent breaks, and kids can step into the hallway and take a mask break. So we can implement lots of ways for kids to be comfortable. The gym teachers especially know how to do this. We've had kids playing varsity sports in masks all last year in places, and the kids and the teachers know how to handle that. I was just in the gym before I came to this meeting. We can have the 2 back doors open all the time unless it's 20 below, and kids can step outside for some fresh air. We're gonna make our best. The contingency plans for staff, we are not expecting adults to have to quarantine if they are vaccinated and have been masked if they've been exposed. We shouldn't have to have people quarantining. The rules about quarantining have shifted. We probably would still have kids quarantining. I think I have more details about that in the packet. But we're working hard to make sure we have a robust set of substitute teachers. We've always, from what I understand, had a good core group of substitute teachers, and we're in touch with them to make sure that they're available. We know it's been an issue all across the state and the country to find subs during COVID, and this has been very stressful on teachers. And so we know it's an issue, and we're doing our best to make sure we have substitute teachers. And we will be applying our same attendance policy that we already have, that we've always had, because we're in person. The rest of my report is not about COVID. It's nice not to talk about COVID. So just for back to school, I want to let you know that I'm focused on supporting staff and students, and in particular, focused on improving our culture and our practice and healing from the upheaval of last year and preventing burnout. Board member Schneip and I attended a training, and we could talk about that at another point, where there was a focus on preventing teacher burnout, and we got a lot of good ideas, and we know it's really important. In order to support staff for coming back, I just want to share a couple high-level things with you that we're focused on. And Dr. Olson and Dr. Hinton and I have been planning. We're planning for teachers to come back next week, and new teachers are actually coming in this week. We're going to help folks adopt some norms of collaborative work and really practice working together in a collaborative way. Not that people haven't, but we're going to actually adopt some norms so it's very explicit. We're going to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion in a rigorous educational setting. So what does diversity, equity, and inclusion really look like in a rigorous educational environment, to the mission and vision you were talking about, and to the pieces that I think are potentially missing from those? We're going to focus on them anyway. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. We can't not do that right now. And if we think about things that have happened recently, including the petition letter from students that was shared in the spring, we just can't not respond and really focus on these things. Some of the professional development we might have regarding that. We have the Reading Center coming in to give us some training on dyslexia. We're going to focus on culturally responsive teaching, equitable grading, and data privacy. So those are a few of the highlights that we have planned for the year. Having clear expectations from this administrative team is something teachers have asked for. We're focused on providing clear expectations, and to that end, I know the board had asked me to focus on the teacher evaluation system, and we have a rubric to share with staff and get their input and feedback and buy-in into this rubric that fits along with the current system, but details out what each of those levels looks like. So I know I'm going into a lot of detail and maybe taking too much time.
Can I ask a question on that
Yes.
one? So I saw that it was item 1B, the Charlotte Danielson's framework.
Yes.
So that is a proposal right now to the teachers, is that what you're saying? Or is it gonna be that is what we're using?
I mean,
I'm not familiar
as
with it, so I'm not.
administrators, we are presenting it as this is what we'd like to use this year. It fits very well with what you have in place. And I'm sure that what you have in place, what we have in place, is based on Charlotte Danielson. It's the gold standard of teacher evaluation. But what we're missing is the rubric, at least we didn't find the rubric that goes into detail about what each of the ratings looks like. So objective, examples. So
Okay.
it's a tool to enhance the effectiveness of our current evaluation tool.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for asking that. You asked about the special education program structure. We're really conducting an ongoing assessment of how students with disabilities are served here at MSA and what changes are needed. Part of this, of course, is related to the investigation, and part of it is related to what we are responsible for as administrators. And we know that we need to make sure we're supporting students with disabilities. We need to make sure we're following the law. And that's sort of ongoing. It is ongoing. We're hiring special ed teachers. We are not done hiring. It's a really tough chore at this time of year, but we're hopeful. And we're making plans for what we have. The other thing we're really focused on for coming back to school is supporting our students. I mean, that's why we're here, right? And so I don't mean to make this, it's not least important by being last. It's just that's where it ended up on my outline, but supporting students is the most important thing, and everything we do is to support students. We are talking with our counselors and we will be talking with teachers when they come back about how we can assess learning and social emotional needs of students. We want to focus on the things that have been recommended by experts. How should kids come back? The things that I've been reading about say provide relevant learning opportunities. Help kids really, really connect to the learning by having it be real and relevant for them. We want to honor the students' experiences and concerns that they've had during COVID. And that's something we want to do as a practice anyways, honor students' experiences and concerns. We like it when students speak their mind and tell us what they're worried about. And we want to offer opportunities for students to share and be flexible and provide a supportive environment. Those are the things that we've heard and read and determined are necessary for kids to feel comfortable coming back from COVID. In the director's report that's in the packet, which is also online for those of you who don't have the big thick packet of paper, there are highlights that I've done since the last meeting, kind of by the headings of my job description. The only thing I'll really share from that, you can look at all those yourself, but I wanted to share that we're giving this website a little facelift, and it's not quite done. Justin, we kind of need clones of Justin at this time of year, and so I just wanted to show 3 little mock-ups of this, and it will be done before school starts. So this has been modified, designed to increase transparency and communication. The website is still, in my mind, too busy, but that can wait for a major overhaul. Right now, we're gonna have photos of kids here at the top. I mean, it doesn't have to be our students' faces necessarily, but to show that this is a school. There's gonna be a blog right on the front where I can put the latest from the director, and then what else is new? He gave me 3 slides. We're gonna have a little place on the left, see that gold ribbon there, where we can put our kudos, the major awards that our school has achieved and our rankings and ratings, so this is where we brag about ourselves a little bit and tell people how great we are. And then I cannot remember what's different here. But anyway, you get the idea. There's a tiny bit of a refresh, facelift to give folks the visible sense that we are different now. So I wanted you to.
On that one, just one request, and you and I talked, Cecilia, but not everyone, that we go kind of mobile first as we
Yes.
do the next big refresh.
Yes,
So
and
people
that's
can use their phones or whatever, right?
definitely on the big
Good.
list. And I actually see mission, vision, strategic planning, launches, some look at branding, website, things like that, and that's where that communications advisory group can respond to some proposals and things like that. So I think it'll be good, and I know we have to have the website work well for people on their phones. I see everyone on their phones try to make it work, and it doesn't always work so good. That is all I wanted to share until we get to committees. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
So back to the masks. So last year, we were receiving a weekly number, COVID number. And I think that something like that would be helpful, because if we wait for MDE and MDH to say they don't recommend masks, I don't think they're ever gonna say that. And so then the kids are thinking the whole year is ahead of me. Maybe I need to go to Woodbury Senior because they're optional. So can you speak to that a little? How can we assure kids that this isn't gonna be forever? That maybe we could just see how it goes at the beginning?
Secretary Bartle, that's a great question, and that's really where my mind is at and my heart too. I'm very hopeful that we have the opportunity for 11-year-olds to get vaccinated soon. That will help a ton. We also are seeing other public institutions, including public school districts, requiring people to disclose either requiring vaccines or requiring people to disclose their vaccination status. So it is legal to ask if you are vaccinated. It's not legal to ask why you're not if you're not. So we could consider something like that. All those things could make it safer, but I hope that we are out of masks as soon as possible. And, people talk about getting over a hump of fall and early winter, and maybe this will be better. I mean, nobody knows, but I would absolutely give kids hope that we wouldn't be in masks all year long.
To that point, I guess, just to build on it, I mean, if we had, let's just say we had 0 in the Twin Cities, it would feel a little silly to insist that we're wearing masks. So I guess the CDC may look at it at a federal level. Maybe the question is, could the task force that's looking at this take into account our local level?
Absolutely. I think we're getting updates now. It's easy for us to get weekly updates, or not weekly, but every 2 weeks, I think, Kate.
I'm not even sure that they're putting those out anymore. That's the concern that I have with that
I'm getting
number.
state numbers, but I think they're broken down by county. We will double check, but whatever level of the smallest grain size we can get, Washington County, that would be my preference, and then share that and consider that with our task force.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And one of the things, if I can interject, if that's all right.
Do you want to come closer to the?
Oh, sorry.
Just the podium, Kate.
Oh, the podium, okay. Great.
Dr. Hinton is our COVID task force chair.
So one of the things that the Department of Health has said is if everyone is masked, unless you have an exposure with that person for more than 2 hours in close proximity, then you don't have to quarantine. So that's our best opportunity to keep school open and not have to shut down classrooms, because we still don't have any classes that go more than 2 hours. And if everybody is masked, that allows, whether they're vaccinated or not, they don't have to quarantine unless they get any symptoms or have a positive test. So that's part of the reason for the masking, is to try and keep school open 5 days a week without having kids have to be at home due to quarantines.
Thank you.
Do you know what the realistic expectation for vaccinations for younger students down to, what, 11 years old or so?
I just heard something on public radio today that it was late October, early November, it was somebody's projection.
Okay.
And didn't I hear we're 70% vaccinated for all those 12 and above,
Right,
right?
which is fantastic.
So you could, I mean, infer that maybe when we can allow a little bit younger, we may have a 70% vaccination rate in the school, which I think would help.
Right. And once we start having the younger kids vaccinated, the likelihood of anybody getting, you know, significantly ill, then you get to much safer to be able to say, you know, it's a personal choice or a family choice in that regard, because you're not going to be, it's your family that you're going to get sick at home, not necessarily the other students. Other students have had the opportunity to be protected.
And that's 6th grade, also maybe 7th grade, or mainly 6th grade?
Right, I mean, I think, who's a middle school teacher? I think, I know we have 11-year-olds in 6th grade.
Yeah, typically. And South Washington County, in any building that has the 6th graders in them, they have to be masked. But we are 612. I don't know that there are any 612s in South Washington County. So we're still in alignment with what our home district is doing. So, and none of us really like wearing masks. You're welcome to keep wearing them long after masks are no longer required, but the hope is that we can get out of them. But the number one driving thing is to keep us all in school 5 days a week, full days.
Thank you.
And I assume one of the reasons we're slightly different from 833 is because we actually share a campus with middle schoolers and high schoolers?
That's right, that's right. We have so much mixing of middle schoolers and high schoolers.
So 833 says any students from ages 2 to, which, you know, I don't know, I've known 2-year-olds, keeping a mask on them would be challenging. From 2 through grade 8, those buildings, everyone's required to wear a mask inside those buildings. It's strongly recommended for students in grades 9 through 12, but because they only have high school kids in those buildings, they make it optional.
And their facilities are much larger too. I mean, the high schools in Woodbury compared to even our facilities here.
Right, there's more students there, but in some of our classrooms, it's maybe a little bit tighter fit.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
So, anyway.
Is that it?
That's it for me.
Any other questions for Ms. Batch? Okay, good. Then we are on to student update, which I don't believe we have this month, but hopefully next month. And then we go to board committees and task forces. So I'm gonna just go through one by one, and you don't need to give an update, but I do know, the first one actually, Ms. Anderson has some questions she'd like to have addressed.
No, I just, last month, the meeting notes weren't in there, the right ones. So it has the last 2 search committee meeting notes in here. So if you have questions for me, you certainly can ask me now, because you didn't have a chance last time.
I did notice that. I was like, why do we have 2 months?
Yeah.
In June through
Any questions? Then we'll go to election committee. Any questions for Mr. Shimon?
I guess I give an update.
Yeah.
We will be having another election. We've seated Sandy temporarily until we could have the beginning of the school year. And I don't know if we said when we're going to do the election yet, but we were going to give it a month or 2 so students, families can be familiar with the community and familiar with their teachers before they get a chance to vote.
Next one up, annual fund. Anything for that one?
Nothing yet.
Communication. Any questions? personnel, any questions? I have a question. Are we meeting next month?
Yeah, so next month we'll meet.
September. Sorry, I'll do that. Okay? So we didn't have a meeting this last month. Policy, any questions for Michelle? Okay. School expansion, my question is why didn't I get the notes in there, right? So I just sent it all out to you guys. We did have a meeting. I'll get the notes in the next month, so. And actually Eric is now the new chair, so I'll get the notes in for the last one and Eric will take the next one.
That works.
Any questions, any questions for expansion, other than why don't we have notes? So, academics, questions for? Did not meet, okay. And now finance, we typically do go through, so I think we have some
Okay.
topics here.
So, give me a second here, I gotta, our notes are on page 18. One thing I want to point out is the financials we have are the year-end financials for last year that we need to approve. Last fiscal year, I should say. They don't prepare any year-to-date financials for this fiscal year because it's over the summer, not a lot of transactions happen yet. So there's really no point in tracking anything yet. And then we do have an update to our budget. First, I'd like to approve our, motion to approve our financials. They start on page 34, 33. And these are year-end financials for last fiscal year.
This is maybe I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Is there, I know we were allowed to carry over for activities accounts, again, sort of as an exception for the year.
Yep.
And it looked like we were doing okay, there was a couple of negatives. Is there a plan to help out those couple of activities in the red, or do they plan a couple of fundraising opportunities earlier in the year?
You know, we did discuss the ones in the red. We should probably, what is that?
Sorry, I
Was
had
that
it, like,
page-
when it was a digital version, I had.
I don't see anyone in the red.
I thought that there were two. That's okay, I must have just been looking too quickly. Never mind, question withdrawn.
Yeah, I don't see any in the red.
Okay. I was just looking too fast on my computer.
Unless I'm missing a page. No, I don't see anything. But thank you for asking. Any other questions?
Does the approval of financials include page 22 and 23, or is that coming later?
22 and 23, that is later. That
Okay,
is the new budget.
that's something else.
Yep.
Are we talking credit cards yet?
This is, yeah, that's part of the credit cards. Do you have questions about the credit
Well,
cards?
can we close down the previous directors yet or not yet?
So,
I don't,
yes, what we have been, yes, there is one charge that continues to hit it. It's a SurveyMonkey account, and we can't get into it, but you had an idea for me, and I actually haven't gotten to
Okay.
it, the password reset idea,
Yep.
because we've been so busy hiring. But hopefully we can get rid of that. It's been hitting, it's like $50 a month, unfortunately.
Just close the card and set up a new
The
survey
card is
account.
closed, but it's still charging.
Oh,
Okay, that's according to Ken.
interesting.
That doesn't make sense, does it?
It might be different because it's a
You
business credit
hear
card.
about these kind
Oh.
of phantom charge
yeah,
things.
just keep going.
Yeah.
Because businesses, each card is for a different person, and that person uses the company.
Well, and I think SurveyMonkey, you want to keep that data. I want to say, will you ever be using SurveyMonkey as a,
Yes, probably, but we would
I
like
mean,
to.
if you could get yourself to email a different password, since you would get the email anyway from Foreman, then you can, when you get the new password, then you can see prior.
Yes, yep,
And that would be very valuable. I would
yep.
not
It's just been a matter of making that come to the top of the
No,
list.
I get it, but if- I'm just saying, I don't think you want to cut it off. You want to keep that.
Yep.
Earlier on in the financials, there was a motion and a second, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, now we're
What was
discussing
that?
a little bit.
To approve
The
it.
financials.
The last year's.
Last year's, like
Last
the results from the end of last year.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other
And that was what
questions?
page 33 was, right here.
That's our balance sheet.
Yep.
And then if you turn the next page, that is our income figure.
Any questions for Cody?
No, no, pretty straightforward. I have the same question there.
Eric, you got any? You okay?
No, I just want to make sure I understood the motion.
Yeah, all right, yeah. And that's why I was curious if the credit card was in that motion, because it's
Yes.
finished in June, yeah. Okay, then let's,
Actually, the credit card statement, I believe, is everything so far, not just,
okay. Okay.
I think that one's ongoing, but we don't have a income statement and balance sheet for this year yet. So, and that will resume next month. That's basically over the summer, the accounting firm finalizes our last year's stuff. They recognize there's not a lot going on now, so starting in September, then we'll resume normal financial statements every month.
And we got a discount on our services, I'm sure.
Sure. That's just how they work.
Good.
So just a quick question for Cody. On the two things, it said the federal aids receivable represents $37,000. Is that?
Now, what
which page?
What page?
Oh, I'm sorry, page 31, it was the executive summary of the financials.
Yes.
So, you know, a third of the way down, it said federal aids receivable represents, you know, for the federal funds, a balance of $37,000.
Yes.
So
That is,
have we received it by now, or when do we, and is that real cash?
it will be real cash. We have earned it.
Okay,
There's just a delay in it getting paid.
okay. So when we get to the other discussions about this year or kind of upcoming budget, that's where it'll be reflected? in
So that money
next
was
year?
recognized as revenue last year.
Oh, okay, so it
We
wasn't-
earned it last year.
Okay.
Yes. And you said you had a second one?
The other one was the 10% holdback. Is that the same deal too? Is it reflected in this year or next year? And is that?
Which line item is that?
It's right above the federal aids. So it's current year state aids
Yeah.
receivable.
So 10% of our revenues from last year will be held back and we will get them this year. But they are recorded as revenue for last year.
And there is no ongoing holdback this year?
There's
So we-
always a holdback.
So do
but
we
if
just
it's-
receive the difference, or, because if they're gonna hold back the same amount of money, why are
Well,
we
basically,
returning it?
I don't know what the percentage change, if it doesn't change, it all comes out in the wash.
Okay.
They just hold it until they clean up our numbers, until our submitted expenditures are finalized. So that's,
So at the end of the
yeah,
day.
so they don't have to ask us for anything back if there was a mistake.
Right, nor should we be expecting a big chunk of cash either.
Nope.
Okay. Said I
Good.
asked. I know.
That'd be nice.
Well, it was the tune of $430,000, so.
Any other questions? Then we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of approving last year's financials as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. What's the next one, Cody?
Revising the budget. Do you want to start or should I?
It doesn't matter to me. What do you think is best?
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay.
So what page are we starting?
Page 21.
So, I wanted to speak with you about what I've learned since I started at the end of June and some needs that I've identified that we currently don't have room for in our tight budget. I presented some ideas to the finance committee a week or two ago, whenever we met, and they recommended that we consider them here. They were supportive, and so I wanted to share these things with you, and I'm gonna try some more slides. First of all, as you know, we run pretty lean here at Math and Science Academy, as charter schools do. And our authorizer shared with me that she's always appreciated that Math and Science Academy runs lean, but also that it's important at a time like this when we're trying to recover from some tough things to make sure that I have the tools I need to do what you've asked me to do. And so it's in that spirit that I come here today to request that you approve an altered budget to include these requests. So first of all, what you've asked me to do is serve as the Chief Academic and Operations Officer. And you've asked me to improve communication with the MSA community and be visible. You've also asked me to implement a positive school culture, conduct an organizational assessment, facilitate a shift in the staff mindset and the school's mindset to become poised to grow, and to reevaluate our policies and procedures to ensure that our school follows and reflects our mission and vision. So that's just the high-level summary of my role in this interim role. And what I have found is I will not be successful unless we can get me a little bit of help. So here are the things I'm asking for. There isn't currently an executive assistant for my position. Right now, there are multiple challenges. I expect them to be all year long. Communication that's expected, communication coming at us from a lot of directions, and the need to organize and be on top of details for improving the communication. And I need to be able to lead from the big picture, and so I need a partner who can be my partner with the details. And we have maxed out our office manager positions because we're using them way differently than they were maybe used in the past. And they're, and also I've noticed I work differently than John did, and I can't be in the weeds all day and lead with the big picture. So this is a transition. I believe that shifting the past practices and having an executive assistant will allow us to continue to be a top-notch school, for me to have a partner in my work, and support us to get over a hump. I see this as an opportunity to look at the roles that you've asked me to look at of the office staff and to differentiate and clarify and gain some efficiency. So I see this as potentially not an increase that stays, maybe this position stays, but maybe we rethink some chunks of work. And this is a way to help get ready for the new director. So that's the biggest ask. The next one is I anticipate that the investigation will cost us at a minimum $40,000. In fact, Chair Ellingson and I were talking earlier, and it's probably more. So that's the other thing I need to tell you right now. I would love to be here, I'm sorry, I can take this off, saying I won't come back to you this year and ask for more money, but I don't know that yet. I would like that to be true, but already I do worry that the investigation might cost more than $40,000 between the investigator and then some legal consulting that we need to do as part of it. So I put these in order of how expensive they are. The next thing is, there was an error that happened last year in the spring in the leadership, the administrative transition that causes me to come to you to ask for $30,000 more in curriculum. It's detailed. I can say that the error isn't a bad thing, but we didn't have any money left in this year's budget from the start. The $30,000 that should have been there for curriculum isn't there, and we need to be able to say yes to other teachers on the supplies and curriculum that they need at a basic level. So we need to sort of fill behind this mistake. It was an honest mistake. People were trying to do jobs they weren't experienced at doing. And we just need to be able to make teachers whole at a basic level by asking for an additional $30,000. We have some hard to fill positions, including special ed and math, that we are still trying to fill. We had a math teacher break his contract and leave after he'd been signed on by Mr. Johnston. So we have had to offer some signing bonuses. I expect that we'll have to pay out about $14,000 in signing bonuses to fill these positions, to even hope to fill these positions. Ever since I got here, I had a lot of people comment about how not good our cleaning company was, and not clean, how not clean our buildings were, and I found that to be true also. We conducted a request for proposals on cleaning companies. We got 3 bids back. One is from our current cleaner. I have to say, our current cleaner rallied at the end here and switched out the old crew and put in a new crew, and they're doing much better, but the fact that they let it languish for all this time and it wasn't good kind of soured me on them anyway. So I'm proposing that we approve tonight a contract with a new company that unfortunately is more expensive than our old company, but I've had 5 people come up to me in the past week at least to say, these buildings are noticeably cleaner. If you walk into the Great Hall right now, it's gleaming. The toilet paper that was hanging from the rafters is gone. The dust is gone from the acoustical things. I mean, they are $10,000 better, so.
This is per year? Per
Yes.
month?
Per year.
So
the
10,000
increase
addition.
More than what we were
Okay.
paying. Yep. For me, especially coming back in person from COVID, having a visibly clean building and having a supervisor who's on site, he's here, every time I turn around, he's here. He's scrubbing walls, he's checking things, like the communication, the responsiveness, it's there. It's worth it. Our maintenance man is going to be retiring. I would like us to hire behind him. We'll need someone. I expect that we might need someone for a few more hours than he's been here, and we might have to pay a little bit more to get someone. And then our computer consultant, Justin, had not, last month, remember, we noticed that he'd been on a month-to-month contract for the last couple years. So I did ask him to propose an annual contract, and he said, well, I might as well put in a small cost of living in there since it's been a while since I've had a raise. He also is worth his weight in gold in terms of how we transition to online learning, and he's been super responsive to moving offices and hiring teachers, and he just really does what he needs to do. And so I think that that's a small cost to pay for an increase for him. And then I had hoped to have a little bit more money for equipment, but I cut it down to $1,000. I feel like we need to create one nice meeting space somehow for staff where they can sit on a chair with a back and not a kitchen, a cafeteria table, but I don't think, we're not gonna do it with $1,000. So I left that in there for odds and ends, equipment that we might need, chairs, things like that, but in general, that's a goal for the future, I think, to have like an outfitted conference room where maybe we can, have a board meeting. So the total of all those requests is $147,000, almost $148,000. I will tell you that we can reduce our special education expenditures. We are a little bit overstaffed in theory in special ed. Now that depends on filling positions, but there's a law called maintenance of effort that doesn't allow you to cut much, so we're cutting as much as we can legally cut, but also we get reimbursement, 90-some% reimbursement, like 93% reimbursement on our special ed expenditures. It doesn't buy us much, but we will cut positions gradually to kind of right size the special ed department, I believe, and so this is $50,000 that we can cut, which only nets us back $3,000. There were some funds set aside for an assistant for our MARS coordinator. We will use that money towards the executive assistant position, and either the executive assistant or the new high school ops manager will take on those MARS roles anyway. So the work is gonna get done, we'll just put it into one of these 2 positions. So we have a little, $11,300 in savings, which makes my net ask $136,480. And then finally, I I wanted to let you know that we were underspent last year by $114,000. So that's good, and that means that ultimately, we really are not, you know, it takes away the effect of that large figure to make it a lot less. So it's almost a neutral ask. And I wanted to let you know that school districts need to have 10% in their fund balance. That's like the rainy day fund or the emergency fund, 10% of their total budget in the fund balance. Our authorizer likes us to have more. I think it's 15% in the contract, I can't remember. But we still, with approving this request of mine, will still have over 33% of our budget in the fund balance, which is very, very healthy. Doesn't have any effect on our bond rating or anything like that. Finally, I wanted to let you know that I expect, as I have a little bit more time here, to find more efficiencies in what we spend and how we work. I'm going after the landscaping company next. But I expect to be able to reduce special ed costs again next year, but it gets us only $3,000, but still, in principle, it's the right thing to do, keep whittling away at that because of the maintenance of effort. And then I expect to be able to gain some other efficiencies in office processes and other processes to the tune of about $80,000. This is just me being still pretty new. But I want you to know I believe I will find efficiencies over time in our budget, and we wouldn't have to come back each year and ask to dip into that fund, that general fund.
The other thing that would not be included in that one would be the investigation. Couldn't you subtract that?
Right, so we
next time?
wouldn't, actually what I don't think I have,
It was in the original request, but you're right.
yep, some of the things on my list.
Oh, and the curriculum.
Right, and some of the things on my list are one-time expenses, the investigation, the curriculum, who knows?
The new staff member.
Yep, because that would,
Okay.
potentially only be a year that we'd be up to 5 office personnel. We could potentially see going back down to 4 if we gain some efficiencies and rearrange some chunks, and that's a goal. So.
I think the only ones that wouldn't be permanent were the cleaning services, maybe the maintenance, and the computer rating.
I think those 3 would be consistent, because if
Yeah.
it's an increase in maintenance needs, I don't think they would go down, and if it's an increase because of the cost of the individual's total salary, so I think those 3 for sure would be regular.
And those are a few of the things I'm finding that are remnants of being a small school. Like the fix I can think of right now for some of these things to help us function as a large school is what I'm asking for. But potentially over the course of the year, as I'm doing the work you've asked me to do, we might figure out what are the different fixes, you know?
Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. So my question is, and this is just me coming at this from not having any context in the past either, but if our operating budget from what I'm seeing is $6.5 million, give or take, why does the board care about $150,000? That's my question at the heart of this is you should feel like you have the authority to go above 2% or below 2% or whatever it is on the budget. So I appreciate the discussion, but from my perspective, this is not a board decision. This is something that you as the executive director have the rights within the budget to make decisions that you need to do.
Thank you for
That's my
saying that.
perspective.
I have to say that as an administrator, I don't want to exceed the approved budget. You know, I don't want to overspend, and so I guess that's why I'm coming. But I wish there was enough wiggle room in the budget where I wouldn't have
But
to.
then even from the way you wrote it there, you're not even, I mean, with the extra money that we have, that net income line that I was gonna ask, but I didn't, but now I know what it is, it makes it even less. It's much more of a wash as well. I think the challenge is for me as coming in here that from a board perspective, our goal is to hold you accountable to what the goals of the school are, the vision of the school, and then you have the rights and power within that and authority to make those decisions that are in best interests, and then we help navigate at a strategic level. So that's
For
my
a
perspective.
little bit of that history, under, some of the financial stuff was not as transparent as it probably should have been.
Sure.
Under the previous
Yeah.
administration, that was part of the problems.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that, you know, again, we're being very transparent here.
Mm-hmm.
And we have communicated with our authorizer,
Mm-hmm.
and so us going, having a deficit, we're not gonna risk, at least at this level, we're not gonna risk losing our authorization,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not gonna break our bond covenants.
Mm-hmm.
So those are, in the past, those have been the two major things that we need to make sure we're following. So we've already looked into that.
But just to be clear, we're not gonna have a deficit, we're gonna have still a 33%.
Well, I mean, we'll have a deficit because we spent more than we took in this year. But we will have a very positive fund balance. So,
I would say for myself as a board member, I do see this something that we would need to know because it makes us dip into our general fund. And if we do it consistently, multiple years in a row, we do have a threat to losing our authorizer and losing a lot of things. So
Yeah.
when we dip into the general
Yeah.
fund, I want to know why.
Yeah.
I definitely want to know why, because if my school closes, there's a big issue.
Yep, and I think that's where, what you're talking about, there's the price of admission, like, there's the sandbox that, as an administrator, executive director, you know you have to play within, you're not gonna go outside of that, that would be a limitation, so one of the limitations that we put in place is that an executive director cannot break a covenant or go outside of bond restrictions or something like that. Then that gives freedom within that place, to make the decisions that are the best interest of the school.
I think what we're saying, we all appreciate getting the update on the pluses and minuses, and maybe the only question would be, does it need to be approved, or is it more of an FYI, here's where we're at?
no, we need
FYI is
to
fine.
approve it.
Right now, I'm okay to approve it, but I'm saying in the future, maybe if we
That's what my
decide that we
question
set
is.
up these sandboxes you mentioned, right, then it could be, by the way, here's where we're at.
Well, if there's budget changes, I think we have specific obligations
I
for
think-
board approval of budget
I
stuff.
think we
Like legally, we have
personally
to-
are responsible. If we're approving it, we're responsible. That was in the board training that we did at the very
I
beginning.
think we are gonna approve the revised budget, right,
We
that's
have to
next step
know,
to
I
this.
have to know what's in there.
Yeah.
So I guess
So this is
I'd
the
like
right
to
thing?
motion to approve the
The changes that
the
Mrs.
changes to the
Dodge has?
budget that's been.
Do you have additional changes?
No.
Or no?
I
Okay.
have one more question.
Yeah.
For the executive assistant, because that is one of the larger, potentially permanent items, when you're advertising the position, are you advertising it as a 1 year with potential for renewal, so they know that?
All of our contracts are one-year contracts. So, I hadn't thought about advertising it that way yet, but it's a good question, I'll take it under consideration.
So yeah, I'd like to motion to approve the amended budget as proposed.
Give a second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want a couple comments. I appreciate what Eric mentioned. I think in a perfect world, that, when you work the numbers in terms of budget, I would agree. But I don't recall the last time we've actually dipped into the general fund like this. So that is kind of new territory, and I'm talking about the last 5 years. The thing though, the two other things that really make it important for us to hear this is, because of the turnover in the board, if you didn't have this conversation, we would know nothing about this. And then we would once again be clueless on how the school runs. And some of this is, from a monetary perspective, not huge, but we need to know there's a $30,000 mistake that we have to rectify. One day when all of us are gone, we're gonna look back and we'll go, what was this? The other thing, and with all due respect to you and to our new leadership, together, you've been here 8 weeks or so. There are a lot of things you don't know about the school. They're specific to the school. I think you guys are great in your knowledge of running schools, but there's so many different things about our school that you could not have picked up in 8 weeks. And maybe it'll take 10 weeks, I don't know. But the whole thing is we want to make sure that we don't accidentally trip over some goofy thing that we certainly didn't even know about that we couldn't have informed you. And that's, had we had some history and someone here to share that with you, I'd be much more comfortable. But there's no one to share that history with you, unfortunately. And for the other folks, but I'm glad you brought your expertise here. Going back, when you said that gaining efficiencies and other efficiencies, are those all driven by headcount or responsibilities that you're going to try to trim, or is that gonna be something else?
I haven't drawn any boundaries around, there are so many ways that schools operate that, little inefficiencies can really add up. So I don't really have an answer to your question, but my eyes are open, and that's one, area of expertise that I bring from my previous experience to help identify ways that we can work smarter,
And to be fair, they haven't actually ran the school yet.
Right.
The school year hasn't even started, so.
We're still waiting
Oh,
for
there
kids
we
and
go.
teachers, yeah.
There we
Valid
go.
point, very valid point.
So the new position you're talking about, executive assistant, you did say that will probably be ongoing?
So what I expect is that within our office positions, I count 5 office type support positions. We may be able to do some rethinking about how the school operates and potentially get that back down to 4 in one way or another. It's just too early to tell. Because do I think that a school of 550 kids needs 5 office support people? Possibly not, but I don't know what I don't know. I'm hopeful that, but right now I know I need someone in this role. I don't have anyone in that role. I don't have anyone who can support me in that way.
So you're looking to hire that as soon as possible?
Yeah, yeah.
And, let's see if there's anything else. Questions. So where in the budget did it fit in the increase in salaries for administrative personnel? How does that figure out in this overall?
If Dustin was here, he could answer that, but there was, some contingency built in, I know. I don't have that answer to exactly where he found that.
But that's an ongoing number then too.
Yep, it is.
Which, can you repeat the question?
Oh, just, the increases in some other of the salaries, where did that come from prior to this
So there had
proposal?
been some, enough wiggle room to fit that, but then.
So
Where?
most of the established staff, we have pay scales for.
Right.
The teachers and the EAs.
Yep.
Most of the budget is based off of historic, what the changes were from years past.
Cody, Jeff is asking where do we find the money to pay
For the additional monies we paid for the
me
administrative
and
staff.
Dr. Heath and
Leadership.
Dr. Olson more than what you had maybe,
Oh.
as Lisa was talking
Oh,
about.
I see, I
before.
see.
Just, and I'm not talking about where as in cash wise, I know we have wiggle room, did this figure out in last year's budget, or is it being figured out into this budget as an increase?
Those numbers are already in this year's budget.
Prior to our discussion here?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's yet another increase that I know we already dealt with, but I'm looking at it in addition to this too, so it's not just.
That, there was room in the budget for those.
Yeah, so it's not. The other thing I can say, since I've been back for 4 years, I've noticed that we're so busy as teachers that we don't have time to do things we used to do. We used to have a lot more, and so it's gonna be curious, with this new administrative system, that kind of, lightens our load, because I just feel like I'm teaching a crazy amount, and then I'm doing a lot of other stuff with committees and board, I know board's another bump up, but it's still, I've not always been on board, so that'll be interesting if that's part of that thing missing that's causing a lot of problems.
Yeah, I do hope that you're right, Annie, that some of that, the operations and administration that you end up doing as teachers, some of that can come off your plate as our office functions more
Yeah, that would
efficiently,
be
effectively. Yep.
I will say that I appreciate in the past, because like right now, the way we have it set up, I'm sending requests to you to help get things updated, which is not at all efficient use of your time, but I also don't have access to websites and things like that, so it would be nice to have that. And also, I want to just publicly say, I appreciate you coming to the board with a proposal instead of just an ask saying, I need so much money, you've given a lot of thought to, and here's how it lines up, right? And here's how I still see some opportunities on how we can close that gap. So I appreciate that approach, as opposed to just look at all the problems we have and I need another $150,000.
Well, and it's hindsight stuff you've already logged in as an issue, so we see the number attached to it, which you feel is not working.
So anyways, thanks for bringing it here, so that we all know. Because I think one of the constant criticisms of the whole of MSA is how do we communicate? So I mean, the more that we can bring these things out in the open, is no one can knock on us and say we didn't talk about it for, a while.
So one final question then, with all things being equal, we do this, the one-time, request, we look at the budget in the spring for the following year, do you think we're gonna need to tap into the fund again?
It's too early, Jeff, I wish I could tell you, but I think it's too early to tell, but my goal would be no.
Okay.
And also,
What was that?
I'm teasing, Jeff, I'm teasing you here.
Well, I mean, we have to decide, number
No.
one, is it an ongoing expense? I mean,
No,
that's
I
kind of
get
question one.
Yeah.
And if I'm voting for something that says, okay, yeah, it's a big chunk, we haven't done this before, we can live with it, and by the way, we see the need, that's not the question. But I just don't wanna have to look at this and all of a sudden, 6 months later, I'm looking at another 150, and then 6 months after that, another 150, and then we continue to struggle with other things such as COVID or God knows what, I mean.
it's, MSA is in a funny spot now until we can physically grow. We're bumping up against capacity issues, and we're gonna have to be really smart about the budget, until we can have room for more kids, period.
So given the numbers, have we what's the max in terms of increased enrollment? Because we
But
projected,
if you-
9?
If you
9,
look,
10?
you see increased enrollment, and I would argue that that's beyond our
Okay.
real capacity. So
Okay.
I think it puts a more onus back on Eric's shoulders to expand.
I mean, that's fair, I saw the numbers.
I'm always
fair.
fair.
They're going up. So we can put it on a spreadsheet, but that doesn't give us more space per kid, right, in here, so until we build.
At least the revenue is there, but to your point, the bigger problem is not resolved, so, okay, thank you.
Good questions, anyone else?
Who seconded the motion?
Eric.
Eric.
So I'm gonna ask all those in favor of approving the revised budget, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Good discussion. Okay, so now we're on to the consent agenda, minus 531A and minus D, JR Computer Associates.
Do we want to do a break, or maybe after the consent agenda?
Sure, we can do a break, right after consent agenda, is that all right? Mask break? So, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I will do the motion to approve the consent agenda as changed, altered.
Okay, and any seconds?
Okay.
I can second. This is Dan. Discussion? There shouldn't be too terribly much.
Pretty straightforward.
So, okay, then let's, all those in favor of approving consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Good, let's take a 5-10 minute break.
10 minutes.
Okay, come back at 8 o'clock Central Time.
No, I appreciate your report.
Have break at 7:48.
Perfect level of detail. Thank you.
Cody, you know how to mute this?
Oh.
Please?
It's just
Oh,
That's for the best.
We are live again?
We got
I don't know
the
who the live-
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what'll happen.
Thanks for having us. Are we live?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone. It's 8 o'clock-ish. We'll get started. So I think we are on item 11, older unfinished business. We have approving the contract Indigo Special Ed Director Services. So last time, if I recall, there's a couple questions on the language being slightly one-sided. So we have the updated contract. Anything you want to share on that?
Right, we had two changes we asked for. One was to make the indemnification clause go both ways. And two was, language around if we were to quit using Indigo in the middle of the year, how the payment, what would be expected from us on payment. We got one of the two things, and it's probably the more important of the two-way indemnification clause, got that approved. The other one, they have that standard language that if you quit in the middle of the year, you still have to pay, and it's in all their contracts, and it's because they've hired all these people,
Oh,
so
They have to support
they'd have to, yeah, they'll support those.
yeah, I was a little worried, there's like no signatures, I'm like, uh-oh, okay.
So, it's before you for approval, everything else looks the same.
Great.
We didn't do a motion, I guess, did we? So I can move that we approve the Indigo revised contract. Second, anyone?
This is Maggie, I'll second.
So any other discussion, questions?
I'm glad at least one of the two was, you're able to get a resolution
Yeah.
of one of the two can spend.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Okay, approves the contract, unanimous, thank you. So now we are on to item 12, items for discussion. So we have the approval, permanent director hiring timeline by Ms. Anderson. Anything from you? No?
Unless you had other questions from the workshop, then I'm just here to make sure.
And we answered yours and you're comfortable, okay.
So we can do a formal approval. I can motion that we approve the discussion that we had in workshop, I guess, and the answers, feedback that we gave. Second, anyone?
Second.
That was Jeff, seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Passes, great. Then cleaning contract.
Yes,
I guess anyone motion to approve that we,
I will motion to approve it.
second?
This is Sandy, I'll second.
And second, let's discuss. Any other comments?
no, I mean, the company is Blue Ribbon Cleaning, and we selected them after reviewing 3 proposals, and they are more expensive than the other 2, but they really do an amazing job. They came highly recommended from some other charter schools, and they've been super responsive.
So are they going to be here after school only and no one during the day?
Right.
Okay, and then are they doing the deep cleaning as well, or is that extra?
So this one's different. Instead of paying extra for deep cleaning in the summer, next summer, we'll just keep the same level. And we can change it too. We can change, but right now they like to, one of the reasons why we like this company is because they employ their own staff. They don't contract out for cleaning crews. They pay their staff a living wage. They would like us to keep our contract steady year-round with them so that they can keep those people on.
Okay.
But we can sure think about it in the spring if we want to do something different with them. But we can ask them to do the deep cleaning in the summer instead of some of the regular cleaning. We can also think differently about how we do summer school, you know. So anyway,
Okay.
lots of options. They're very flexible.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Do they help or with recycling at all? Because in the past, we've had kind of issues of how best to collect it and who's responsible.
I can check with them. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, that would be
That'd be a
helpful,
good
because the
question.
teachers have been doing it in the buildings, that would be helpful.
Well, I think we've been doing it because we were a bunch of dummies and throwing things out on. I think Sherry and.
Well, but
Jen-
they were taking the recycling bins.
Yeah, that's
and
what I mean, they were
throwing
taking
them
it
out.
out and then we weren't doing it right, so I think.
I mean, if they could help us, and they.
Yeah.
Are
we help
teachers
them.
bringing it home?
No,
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 We
it's just,
we collect it in our room. They only emptied our garbages, because when they were emptying the recycling, they were just throwing it in the garbage anyway.
Oh.
So then, we then
got
take
trained.
it ourselves. So when mine's full, I take it to the recycling bin or have a student do it or whatever.
Yeah, so if they, it's not a huge
No,
deal, but if
no,
it was
no.
part of it, it'd be cool.
That would be cool.
I'll check.
Getting the students to do it really teaches that responsibility is somewhere in our mission and vision.
Is that gonna prevent us from approving this motion?
Nope, not at all, it's just a question to ask. We gotta keep it rolling. And
Yeah.
questions.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Good, new cleaning, thanks for doing the research there. Discussion highlights, Minnesota School Board Association training.
I can share briefly, I promised Cody I'd send him my notes and then I didn't, but we both attended some 3 or 4 hour long training on Zoom through the Minnesota School Board Association. The first part was a survey that was done through the University of Minnesota, the Minnesota Comprehensive Center. Part of that is called CAREI, C-A-R-E-I. They're very well respected. It was a safe learning survey. They surveyed 24,000 people in the winter and almost 11,000 in the spring, families, students, educators. And school districts were given a link to send out. I'm guessing ours didn't get out, maybe because, I don't know, but anyway, the biggest takeaways for them on this survey, it was about how it's an annual survey about safe learning, but because of COVID, it was different. So their biggest takeaways are that kids are worried about coming back to school because they're worried about some of the pre-COVID things that happen at school. This is across the state, like racism and homophobia and things like that. Mental health, teachers were very concerned about mental health of students. Students were slightly less concerned about their own mental health. Parents were concerned about their kids' mental health. The takeaways from the study regarding student mental health is that we can't do this work with the structures we had in place before COVID. We actually have to think differently about how we meet the social, emotional, mental health needs of kids at school. The other takeaways from the study of this survey was that educators are resilient and learn so much during COVID, and it's important for us to listen to educators. It's important for all of us to listen to educators about what they learned during COVID so that we can honor their experiences and move forward with what can be better and what they learned. And then kind of that the what could be better, sorry, that's repetitive. The third thing that was a takeaway from the study was that we need to think about engagement, and I mentioned this earlier in my director's report. We need to think about engagement and learning at a deeper level with students now than we did before. The other two pieces of the training were just the Dover AOTA School District did a presentation on minimizing staff burnout, and I took away a number of great ideas from them. They said there's been a 35% increase in teachers applying for retirement benefits, and we of course have seen resignations. All school districts are seeing teachers quitting, teachers retiring, teachers leaving because it was hard last year. So we need to find ways to take care of the staff we have, and they shared a lot of good ideas. And there was a third part that didn't interest me as much that was, I can't even, it was diversity, equity, and inclusion, but it was an equity framework. They talked about intersectionality, but it was a little bit more in the weeds than I want to share with you guys. Cody, what would you add? Anything to that?
No, that's I do want to add, I believe there were only 2 charter schools that attended that seminar. I don't even remember the other one. And so it was focused more towards big school districts, so some of the stuff just kind of missed us because we're a charter school. But overall, it was very good morning. We had a good.
Yep, I haven't seen the PowerPoints, but I think that they were making them available, and so we would have them if anyone wants to see them.
Thanks for going, guys. Bring back the report. Good. Yeah, next one is item, well, actually, we're gonna do D, right?
Yeah.
Is that 531?
Yep, policy 531.
What page number was that again? I think it was right after the financials.
Yeah, it's sneaking in there. Hey, that's the school nurse. Man. 66.
56.
Yeah, it's like it's just a single page. There we go. That's why it hides. Usually policies are longer.
What page was that?
66.
I know, I read that.
66, got it. Not bad.
So for this one, the reason I shifted it is because it's an annual review, but an annual review of a policy we don't have. So the Minnesota State statute allows for schools to choose to adopt the policy for the Pledge of Allegiance or to opt out of the policy for the Pledge of Allegiance. No student can be prevented from, the way the statute reads, students can recite the Pledge of Allegiance entirely on their own without regard to it. But by adopting the policy, you adopt specific measures about the pledge and how it's done and some of the procedures involved in it. And so, for myself, while I understand the emotion and I understand the reason why a number of individuals choose to complete the Pledge of Allegiance, there's also a very kind of difficult history attached with the amendments that have been made to it over time, and the discrimination that people face if they choose, which is their legal right, to abstain from taking that. So traditionally, MSA, again, you annually vote to adopt it or no. And so far thus, we have not voted to adopt the pledge. By doing so, then you would need to just put into effect when we wanted it done, how and what procedures people would be following through with if they did not want to do so. I myself have agreed with the idea that you can, we have our flags in multiple rooms, we have a flag in front of the building, the pledge can be taken and done so by anyone at any time without a formal MSA structure requiring it and setting it. Thoughts?
So if we take no action,
We have to vote to adopt it or no, so,
So is there a motion?
not yet.
And we haven't adopted it in the past, is what
No,
you're
it's
saying?
not an existing policy, but part of the way the statute for Minnesota is written is that it must be an annual review.
So we would vote to waive that requirement if we didn't want that requirement, and if we didn't waive it, then it would be a requirement.
Yes.
Got it.
So if we make a motion to waive or not adopt the policy requiring Pledge of Allegiance at MSA, if you, then
What have we done historically?
we have not adopted it. We've never adopted it. Other big thoughts?
I think early on have we never done it here?
Nope.
Okay,
Not
Unless
when I
we
was a
could-
student.
okay, so it must be.
I mean, we learned about it and we talked about it, but it wasn't a.
Okay,
Yeah,
Like,
it's
right.
It's a part of our history and part of the fabric of a number of court cases that at the state and federal level. So it's definitely an element of our history. But as I said, and again, everybody has their own ideas. For myself, understanding the negative impacts and discrimination that can happen for those who choose not to, it can be pretty severe. So I myself have an opinion of allowing anybody to say the pledge who wants to say it, but not requiring it at a mandated time by all classes, which is what you would have to do, so that everyone knows who isn't saying it. I believe that that puts a larger target on their back.
You wanna make a motion then?
Well, I just want to make sure everybody can share their ideas.
I mean, I'm just wondering if people have done.
I believe at one point when I was a student, we had a club that met every day
Oh, really?
Yeah,
in front of
okay.
the school to do
Yeah,
that.
yep, we
So,
got the poll.
and that,
Yep.
so that is.
That's beautiful, honestly, I
Yeah.
love that, that's like.
So
so
like
cool.
that, we're not removing it from the
Yeah.
school, there will still be provisions for that.
We're just not requiring it. Yeah. So I guess the question is, does anyone feel strongly that we should require it and change precedent?
I feel pretty strongly about it.
That we
I
should
like
be?
the pledge.
Yeah.
We live in America. I think we should say it. I did as a kid. I think it's great. I like the pledge.
So do we want to put it under a motion?
I will make a motion to not adopt policy 531, the Pledge of Allegiance.
Is Cindy, I'll second it.
Okay, motion to not adopt policy.
So if you say, yes, we don't adopt, if you say, no, you're voting to.
Because it's a mandatory annual review of either if we do or we do not.
Okay, any further discussion or we fit to a vote?
And just so it's clear, if you say yes, then you're
No
agreeing
pledge.
with the waiving of the
Yes.
requirement. If you say no,
That
then you
means you
are,
want the
pledge.
pledge.
you want the pledge. That's correct. Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Nay?
No.
Nay as well, so, 7-2. Okay. Next we had E, which Jeff, I think.
Yeah, I think you actually answered the question. I just wanted to know if there were any additional services you might have discussed with Justin,
No.
or it's just a slight increase?
Yes, no additional services, no additional scope or change in the scope, just a very slight increase after at least 3 years without any increase, so.
Does Justin do all this by himself?
No, he's got some student workers.
Yeah, he's got minions.
He's got minions.
Yeah, mini Justins, yeah.
And they're fabulous.
Many years, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, they're excellent. Yes.
Some of them
Wow,
come back to
I'm
help
impressed.
for fun.
Yeah, they
Maybe a
do.
little
It's so great.
They run the dances a lot of times.
I know. I haven't seen Joey
Okay.
this year though.
We're almost done, guys.
Keeping us on
Right
track.
here, yeah.
Silent one squirrel, it's okay.
I think we're on to 13, right?
Yes.
So 13, whatever.
Wait, do we
Wait,
need, we need to
motion.
approve the contract?
Yeah.
Oh, we did move it, you're right.
Yeah, so
yeah.
moved, approval of contract with JR Computers.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, good catch, thank you. So now we go to 13, and I just, we have a few topics here, I think they'll go quick. Governance training and strategic plan review, we're trying to pair those together. I got a chance to talk to Bruce. Eric, did he?
I did not. He
Not yet.
called, I did not get a chance to call.
Maybe yes. And so I guess the only thing would be if we could push that up a little bit to help with the request earlier, that would be nice.
Okay,
In terms of timing.
will do, yep.
I
Let's see.
we had talked about looking at a governance model. We never said we were gonna like pursue it. We were still investigating, because I'm
Yep.
still not on board with
Yes, we
changing
are
our governance
investigating.
model at
I
all.
think that's a part of the retreat is to make sure that we have ample opportunity to discuss.
Okay,
Get the
okay, good.
options out.
So
Sorry,
We're gonna
it's
do that
not,
first part.
Yeah, because I'm
Yeah.
still.
it's not changing,
Yes.
it's, I mean, even we should talk about how we're governing ourselves right now,
That's
and then you
exactly
can
right.
look through other options of governance. I think that's the point.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
I
Good,
do
quick,
like
good
the
catch.
idea that we're gonna go through models and talk about what,
Different benefits, what
Yep.
makes sense for MSA.
That's the point.
Approval of staff contract, if I can go to that one. C, the only reason I want to talk about this quick is we agreed that we're going to look at that this year and we have the difference between contracts and at will. And we just had some more teachers leave just recently, and I feel unfairly recently, and I'm not singling anyone out, but that's not fair to the school or to the kids. So we need to come up with a way that's like a little bit more equally fair as we do this. We have a 30-day clause if the MSA says you need to move on, but we don't really have anything coming back this way, no penalty, no anything. So I just a comment, I'm just putting my opinion out there, that when we do this contract, let's make sure that we have it fairly, so that we don't have this end of August sort of kind of quitting and we're stuck, right? We're paying extra money, the school is at disadvantage, so that's my soapbox, sorry. And I think it's only professional and fair, that if you say you're gonna be here, that you, unless something's crazy happens, you're gonna be here. Okay, and then we did mention, and I think we just captured diversity, equity, inclusion needs to be a focus area. We don't have what that means just yet, but hopefully we'll have something more specific in the coming months. So next meeting I have is September 20th, workshop 5, meeting 6:15. Can I get a motion to adjourn at 8:17?
So moved.
I will second, this is Dan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion. Meeting adjourned.
One suspension.
Good job, guys.
I don't know yet.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta be closer to a record, no?
This is the last one.